Chapter 46-43. At this moment, the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord also spoke. Since he's the Namo great merciful Vidyalaya Bodhisattva, he must have the world in his heart. I support such a person becoming the number one expert of the three continents. The Mahavarakana world lord also supports him. My sky-bearing palace also supports him. The primordial chaos ancestor hurriedly yelled. Xiaofan waved his hand. Everyone, you're wrong. Let's discuss how to break the restriction first. If it's really the setup of the four great families, this restriction is no small matter. I've studied the Tao of formations of Taoism in the past. The primordial chaos ancestor smiled. If you want to break the formation, you must first know what kind of formation it is, what are the formation plates and flags used to set it up, and where is the formation core. Only when you have a clear understanding of the formation can you truly break it. According to Taoist primordial chaos, what kind of formation is this? What are the formation plates used to set it up? And where is the core of the formation? Xiaofan asked with a smile when they talked about the formation. The primordial chaos ancestor felt a little guilty and chuckled. This must be the defensive formation of the Confucian cultivators. That's not something I can know. Damn it. The heavenly being shouted, after listening for so long, you're still spouting nonsense. Sigh, does your disciple know what kind of nonsense you're spouting every day? Damn it. The primordial chaos ancestor was a little embarrassed. He glanced at the heavenly being and cursed inwardly. There was a moment of silence on the Jiangchao temple. Suddenly, a whirling breeze descended from the sky. Everyone looked up and saw that in the blue sky, the sun was high up in the sky. There seemed to be a circle of light that was visible to the naked eye, slowly sliding down. Xiaofan was shocked. He hurriedly used his divine sense to scan the area, but nothing happened. Not even a spatial ripple appeared, let alone any fluctuations. However, this halo of light was like a heavy boulder in everyone's heart. No one knew what this light thread was used for. This kind of mystery was more frightening than any other method. Your Majesty. The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord retracted his gaze and looked at immortal Emperor Go-Chen. These four defensive formations. Have you seen them before? I haven't seen them before. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen calmly replied. Moreover, I feel that these four formations are not the defensive formations of Confucian cultivators. Xiaofan sneered. If it's not a defensive array, could it be my Tao sect's array? Could it be the Buddhism formation of the Buddhism sect? The golden-winged great rock looked at the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord and probed. The Grand Mist ancestor rubbed his chin thoughtfully. It could also be the demonic beast race's demonic array. Amitba, there's no need to guess anymore. The Dipankara archaic Buddha, the world exalt, said, I don't know what kind of formation this is. However, I seem to have some impression of the scattered Sarira lights mentioned by the Guanyin Bodhisattva. Oh. Revered one of the world, please speak. Xiaofan hastily asked. Unfortunately, the Dipankara archaic Buddha did not answer him directly. Instead, he looked at the immortal Emperor Go-Chen and asked, Did you not notice anything, Your Majesty? Immortal Emperor Go-Chen smiled. Of course I know what I see. I'm sure you know what you see as well, right? Amitba. Seeing how the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord refused to speak, he could only say, Since Your Majesty doesn't want to say, I'll just have to embarrass myself. According to my Thunder Monastery's records, before the Immortals and Buddhas joined forces to destroy the Tao, 5 flags appeared on the 3 great continents. They were known as the earlier Heaven 5 Elements flags. According to legend, these 5 Elements flags were formed from the 5 petals of the chaotic green lotus. They are all supreme-grade early heaven treasures. The Eastern treasured flag is known as the Green Lotus flag. It can calm one's heart, repel all evils, and be invulnerable to all arts. The Eastern treasured flag emits the scattered Sarira lights. These scattered Sarira lights are similar to my Buddhism sect's scattered Sarira lights, yet there are some differences. I don't know what the differences are, because I've never seen this green lotus flag before. If the Guanyin Bodhisattva didn't mention the scattered Sarira lights, I wouldn't have remembered this story. SSS. Hearing the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord mention the 5 elements flags, Xiaofan instantly thought of the mystic origin water control flag he had obtained in the profound water palace. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air as he thought, that day in the profound water palace, Xin revealed the origin of the mystic origin water control flag. She said that it came from the immortal world and was used to suppress the devil saber murder in the profound water palace. The immortal world she mentioned must be the heavenly court. I've only seen the might of the mystic origin water control flag and don't fully understand it. However, I'm well aware of how powerful the devil saber murder is. That's a devilish saber that even the devil lords of the ruins feared. Yet, it was suppressed by the mystic origin water control flag. If this mystic origin water control flag is one of the 5 elements flags, then the other 4 5 elements flags that form these 4 formations aren't something I can deal with. Even if I summon my devilish saber, I won't be able to do anything. Thinking of this, Xiaofan hurriedly asked, World Lord, the other 4 5 elements flags. What are their names? What's so powerful about them? Amitabha. The cultivation of Buddhism isn't about Buddhism formations, but about the heart. If it weren't for the Sarira lights on the green lotus flag, I wouldn't have known about it. Therefore, I don't know about the other 4 5 elements flags. The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord didn't know if he really didn't know or if he was faking it. He only pushed this question to Immortal Emperor Go-Chen. I'm afraid I can only ask your majesty about this. Humph. Xiaofan snorted and looked at Immortal Emperor Go-Chen. Even Xin knew about the origin of the mystic origin water control flag. How could Immortal Emperor Go-Chen not know about it? Unfortunately, Immortal Emperor Go-Chen still shook his head. Why must I know if the earlier Heaven 5 Elements flags don't belong to my immortal palace? What? Your Majesty doesn't know about it if it doesn't belong to the immortal palace? Xiaofan narrowed his eyes and asked calmly. Oh, if that's the case, this sage finally remembered. The golden-winged great rock suddenly cried out. The Great Sage Hall has records of something called the connate pentagonal formation. This formation is neither a Dharma formation nor a demonic formation, much less an imperial formation or a Buddhist formation. The pentagonal formation is set up by 5 connate flags. These 5 flags possess boundless power and are used to protect one's body. All evil will be repelled, and all magic will be impenetrable. Let this sage think. The central flag is called the Yellow Earth Apricot Flag? Yes, it's called the Yellow Earth Apricot Flag. When this Yellow Earth Apricot Flag is activated, nothing can break through it. All evils will be repelled, and no arts will be able to invade it. Yes, it seems to be called the 10,000 Golden Lotuses. It's very similar to what Longsher Xiao saw in the east of Longevity Town. What about the others? Xiaofan asked. The golden-winged great rock shrugged and shook his head. This sage can't remember the others. This sage only took a casual glance. But then, the golden-winged great rock looked at Immortal Emperor Go-Chen and said, Go-Chen, it is said that the earlier Heaven 5 Elements flag was obtained by a Confucian sage. Later on, it was controlled by the human race and eventually lost to the hidden immortal continent. Could it be that you don't know about it? Humph. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen coldly snorted and said, My Confucian sage has many sages. I don't know who Sage Peng is talking about. Moreover, my immortal palace has never had any records about this. However, if you are talking about the earlier Heaven 5 Elements flag, this emperor doesn't know everything. I only know that the southern flag is called the Floating Flame flag. This flag confuses yin and yang, reverses the 5 elements, repels all evils, and is impenetrable by all arts. When it is activated, the flames are like clouds and can conceal the 5 elements. The Western flag is called the White Cloud Boundary Flag. This flag has a dense and mysterious image that illuminates the heaven and earth, repels all evils, and is impenetrable by all arts. When it is activated, the clouds float and the heaven and earth change colors. As for the Northern flag, this emperor doesn't know. Damn it, you are still being secretive even at this time. Xiao Hua was very disdainful of Go Chen's character and secretly cursed. However, he wasn't sure if the Mystic Origin Water Control flag was the Northern flag, so he couldn't say anything. Wen Chu frowned and said, "If it is as you all said, then this immortal town is surrounded by the 5 elements grand formation. However, this 5 elements grand formation is missing the Northern flag, so it can't be considered complete. We should have a chance. Immortal friend Wen Chu is looking down on this 5 elements grand formation too much." The golden-winged Great Peng shook his head and said, "You should know that this 5 elements grand formation is called the innate 5 elements grand formation. Not to mention the 5 innate 5 elements flags acting as the eye of the formation, no one in the 3 continents can break it. Just the innate 5 elements flag alone is not a match for immortal friend." At this time, Wen Chu glanced at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua had already told him about the Mystic Origin Water Control flag. After hearing this, Wen Chu's expression unconsciously changed. After all, he was very clear about the power of the Devil Saber murder. If that's the case, then this formation without the Northern flag should be called the innate 4 elements grand formation. Immortal Emperor Gaochen said, "At this time, I don't need to say anything more. Everyone should know who is scheming against us, right? Gaochen." The golden-winged Great Peng shrieked, "Is there still a need to say it? The innate 4 elements grand formation is spread out in all directions and sealed off the immortal town. Apart from the 4 great clans, who else could it be? However, the one they are scheming against is probably you, right?" Immortal Emperor Gaochen laughed and said, "Is there a difference? Could it be that Sage Peng is not inside the formation? This sage is naturally inside the formation. However, even if we are both inside the formation, we are different, right?" The golden-winged Great Peng replied without hesitation, "The 4 great clans are coveting the immortal palace's throne. This innate 5 elements grand formation is known as the number 1 defensive formation in the world. It is even more powerful than Daoist Zhao's capital star formation. The 4 great clans have trapped you here, so they must have already killed their way to the immortal palace. Damn it!" Immortal Emperor Gaochen cursed inwardly when his thoughts were exposed by the golden-winged Great Peng. He then looked at Xiao Hua and said, "Master Xiao Hua, you should be more vigilant now. Previously, you fought against the 4 great clans at Chaomuya. This time, you are trapped in the immortal town. Who knows, the Nangong family might attack your soaring Dragon Mountain range first." Hearing Immortal Emperor Gaochen mention Chaomuya again, Xiao Hua's anger surged. He sneered coldly, "Old man Gaochen, Sage Peng is not afraid of the 4 great clans attacking the Great Holy Hall. Do you think this Xiao is afraid of the Nangong family surrounding my fortune gate? This Xiao will put my words here. If Nangong Tianji dares to go, this Xiao can guarantee that he won't be able to keep his head. As for your majesty, shouldn't you tell this Xiao where the New Heaven's punishment prison crystal is being kept? Otherwise, this Xiao will make a move before the innate 4 elements grand formation, gift it, and thank you for all your support." Chapter 46-44. Motherfucker, speak. At this time, the Celestial also shouted arrogantly, "Otherwise, I will pull you down from the throne." The rock chuckled and added, "Gaochen, I saw that you were scheming before, but you're still a lord of a region. You're still broad-minded. That's why I'll accept any invitations you have unless it's something special. But now, it seems that everything you've done doesn't match your status as the Lord of Immortal Palace. Daoist Xiao is a human grand ascension stage, a dragon among men. He's so broad-minded that even I want to befriend him. Why don't you like him? The 9th princess was wrong earlier, but Daoist Xiao gave you enough face in the battle against Xiao Muya. If you still don't give him face, then don't blame me for not giving you any face. Hee, how can taking advantage of a burning house be a gentleman's style? Immortal Emperor Gaochen didn't care about the rock's threat and said flatly, Sacred Peng, do you think I'm afraid of these idiots? Moreover, I also believe that Master Xiao Lei's words were just words of anger. He will definitely consider the big picture and help the master of the School of Literature to break the 4 directions formation. Because if something happens to me, then no one will know about it. Xiao Hua looked at Immortal Emperor Go Chen's face that was covered by the light. He also couldn't see Immortal Emperor Go Chen's expression, but Xiao Hua knew that under the light. It was definitely a complacent expression. Immortal Emperor Go Chen was the only person who knew the whereabouts of the Heaven Punishment Prison Crystal. Unless he decided to break off relations with the Immortal Palace and search every inch of the hidden Immortal Continent, he really couldn't casually make a move. Xiao Hua took a deep breath and said coldly, Your Majesty controls the fate of all Confucian cultivators in the world. How can you not have a way to destroy the schemes of the 4 clans? Oh, and where's your golden throne? All Confucian cultivators in the world will bow before the throne. Your Majesty, you should act quickly. If I could bring the throne down from Immortal Palace, would Dongfang Qianghao and the others still dare to set up this formation in Immortal Town? Immortal Emperor Gaochen sneered. They only dare to use their brains when I leave Immortal Palace. His Majesty doesn't have a golden throne, but he still has the Emperor's sword. Xiao Hua's gaze fell on the Emperor's sword in front of Immortal Emperor Go Chen and said, If the Emperor's sword doesn't come out, who would dare to use their techniques? The meaning of Xiao Hua's words was very clear. Even if others wanted to break the seal now, they had to stop and wait for Immortal Emperor Go Chen's Son of Heaven's sword to attack before they dared to try. Humph. Immortal Emperor Go Chen scowled. He knew that the 4 clans were targeting him, so how could he not use his strongest move? However, his plan to use Xiao Hua had failed. Instead, he had been forced here by Xiao Hua. It seemed that he had no choice but to take action. This made him feel very unhappy. Humph, a lazy donkey has a lot of shit and pee on it. Xiao Hua also coldly snorted and secretly criticized in his heart, At this time, you still want others to help you. You've really gone crazy from scheming all day long. If I were Dongfang Qianghao, I'm afraid I would also flip this guy over. Immortal Emperor Go Chen's body flew up and turned into 1,000 feet tall. He used his golden pupils and scanned the sky. Then, he raised the Emperor's sword. Buzz. With a clear hum, the space within 1,000 miles of Immortal Town began to tremble. Then, pillars of righteous energy appeared in the void. Unfortunately, these pillars of righteous energy only appeared for a moment before disappearing. The void inside the formation was blocked, so the Emperor's sword could only channel a small amount of righteous energy. Boom! Seeing that the righteous energy was no longer there, Immortal Emperor Go Chen's body swayed. The sun and moon above his emperor's armor shined brightly. The dragon that represented the providence of Confucian cultivators stepped on the 5-colored clouds around Immortal Emperor Go Chen and roared as it rushed into the Emperor's sword. Whoosh! A light shadow and righteous energy gushed out from the Emperor's sword. Amidst the cries of dragons and phoenixes, mountains and rivers, cities and countries, men plowing and women weaving, the myriad phenomena of the mortal world, and even the mountains and seas of books were all reflected in this warm sword light. This sword light seemed to be surging with a myriad of sword intents. It was an invincible royal aura that controlled the world. It fell towards the intersection of the golden lotus clouds and the Sarira's light. Boom! Under the Emperor's sword, amidst the explosions, the clear eyes art, the 10,000 golden lotuses, and the Sarira's light that were invisible to the naked eye and divine sense were revealed. Outside of Xiao Hua's expectations, no matter if it was the golden lotuses or the Sarira, under the Emperor's sword intent and sword light, there were no special changes. The boundless images fell into the clouds and the Sarira's light, like a clay ox entering the sea, and disappeared without a trace. The Emperor's sword's body slashed into the gap between the clouds and the Sarira's light, but it also seemed to have fallen into a quagmire. It gradually slowed down, and in the end, it was actually suspended in the air. All kinds of strange images slightly trembled and then went back into the Emperor's sword. Hiss. Sun Jian, on the side, took a deep breath and said, "Even the Emperor's sword couldn't do anything. Who in this world can break this innate four-cardinal formation?" Previously, there was still a grand qi flowing. Now, the four-cardinal formation seems to have been activated, and the grand qi pillar within the void has also been isolated. Xiao Hua said calmly, "If I'm not mistaken, the heaven and earth essence qi of our Taoism will also be isolated. Our powers will be greatly reduced." Amitba. The Dipankara archaic Buddha chanted and flew out. The bitter expression on his face became heavier, and he said, "Let me try. World Lord, your disciples are here to help." Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva didn't dare to delay and quickly flew out as well. He stood behind the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord, and the other Buddhist protectors and arhats also flew out and stood behind the Manjushri Bodhisattva. Amitba. The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord chanted again. His voice was filled with helplessness, desolation, fading away, and even death. The radiance behind the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord's head shone brightly. Within the radiance, the power of faith flowed like a river. However, just like when the Emperor's sword was activated, the power of faith only flowed for a short while before it dried up. It can't be. Sun Jian was dumbfounded. As if he had seen a ghost, he yelled, "The earlier heaven four-cardinal formation can even stop the power of faith?" Looking at Sun Jian's shocked expression, he no longer resembled the knowledgeable true Lord Qingyuan. While Sun Jian was still in shock, the radiance behind the Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva and the other Buddha's heads shone brightly. The radiance was infused with the power of faith, transforming into Buddhist lights that rushed into the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord's radiance. Instantly, within 1,000 miles, Sanskrit chants resounded. Heavenly flowers rained down, and a heavenly maiden and a heavenly dragon appeared. However, just like before, the heavenly maiden and heavenly dragon silhouettes appeared and disappeared immediately after. The heavenly flowers fell to the sky, but soon withered. The Sanskrit chants didn't stop, but they didn't have the same momentum as those on the stage. Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord chanted a Buddhist mantra, and a radiant illusory figure emerged from the radiance behind his head, landing within the slabs of light far away. Wherever the radiant illusory figure passed by, darkness would appear. Wisps of radiance would wither into heavenly flowers, and small kiliacosms would be annihilated one after another. The power of death and withering? Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes. He had already noticed something amiss from this Buddhist light. "Oh, there's even the faint flow of time. I understand now. The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord not only represents the past, but also represents death. The Maitreya Buddha World Lord not only represents the future, but also represents rebirth. Only when I've comprehended the Tao of life and death, and when Chu has cultivated the Qi of life, can Buddha Bodhi truly attain fruition." As for the Mahavarakana World Lord, not only does he represent the present, but he also represents the boundary between life and death. Shouldn't the Mahavarakana World Lord be in control of life and death? As for the pitiful Buddha Bodhi, he's only a future Buddha Lord. I'm afraid he'll never become a Buddha. While Xiao Hua was pondering, the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord's radiant illusory figure had already landed on the slabs of light. Under the radiant illusory figure, thousands of slabs of light flashed, and the radiant illusory figure also disappeared instantly. The space remained the same, and the scenery remained the same. It was even more traceless than a spring dream. While everyone was still in shock, Xiaofan came to a realization. After all, his thunderous palm contained the Tao of life and death. If even the Tao of life and death couldn't do anything, how could the pure power of death and withering be effective? World Lord. Seeing the radiant illusory figure vanish without causing any ripples, Namo Wisdom Manjushri and the others' expressions changed. Just as they were about to speak, the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord chanted, Namo Amitba. Then, he slowly returned to the sky above the river tide temple, sat down cross-legged, and remained silent. All the Buddhas were dejected. Other than Namo Wisdom Manjushri, who was still standing in mid-air, the others all sat down cross-legged and silently chanted Buddhist scriptures. Sigh, this is the only bad thing about Buddhism. Seeing this, Xiaofan sighed inwardly. He looked at the sun that was about to reach his head, as if he wanted to see something. Currently, there wasn't much wind blowing in the blue sky. Previously, there were still some clouds, but they were all shattered by Immortal Emperor Gochen's sword. The scattered clouds floated in the air, as if they were cotton. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, Xiaohua's expression changed drastically. He flew into mid-air and scanned the area with his divine sense. Then, he opened his illusion-breaking eye and shouted, "Everyone, the area within 1,000 miles of the Longevity Town has been completely sealed. Not only is the noble chi and the worldly essence unable to flow, even the air that mortals breathe has been sealed. We don't need to breathe to survive. From now on, we don't need to breathe anymore." After speaking, Xiaohua didn't wait for anyone's response. His figure flickered, and he landed at the edge of the Longevity Town. Then, he carefully scanned the area with his divine sense. Give it a recommendation vote, collect it, or tip it. Thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-45. 200 years later, the Longevity Town was no longer the same as when Xiaohua had left. Not only was the town a few times larger, but the surrounding population had also increased by more than 10 times. Moreover, due to the sutra seeking extreme bliss, the Longevity Town only had the tidal river temple and other businesses related to Buddhism. The population that was more than 10 times larger were all gathered outside the Longevity Town. When Xiaohua had left, the desolate roads and mountain ranges were now bustling with activity. Many villages and markets had appeared. In fact, if it weren't for the restrictions of Buddhism and Confucianism, the Longevity Town would have become a county long ago. The Xiantian Four Cardinal Grand Formation sealed off the Longevity Town within 1,000 miles. Naturally, it also trapped these mortals within the formation. Without air, Xiaohua and the other cultivators could survive. However, these mortals couldn't. Xiaohua had to either break the Four Cardinal Grand Formation or take these mortals into the Shenhua continent. However, Xiaohua was a little hesitant to take these mortals in front of the Dipankara archaic Buddha and Immortal Emperor Gochen. He was afraid that these two exalted experts would see through his secret. Especially Immortal Emperor Gochen. That guy had the clear heavenly mirror. Fortunately, the Xiantian Four Cardinal Grand Formation had just been activated. There was still plenty of air within the formation. Xiaohua's divine sense swept through the area. The mortals around the Longevity Town were still living blissfully and didn't realize that death was approaching. Ignorance. How nice. Xiaohua sighed and was about to move again. He already had a plan. In the end, he had to take these mortals into the Kunlun mirror even if he had to risk exposing his secret. Right at this moment, radiant colors flickered high up in the sky. Strands of multicolored lights were formed like raindrops. Then, these multicolored lights transformed into golden lotus clouds, Sarira lights, flaming clouds, and layers of clouds around the Longevity Town. The clouds revealed by the 4 cardinal flags surged and transformed into Dongfang Qianghao, Shimen Jianzhong, Nangong Tianji, and Baiming Chuqing. These 4 didn't have secondary bodies and weren't as large as normal secondary bodies. They were only a few dozen feet in size. As the multicolored lights passed by, all colors were restrained. They looked no different from ordinary mortals. Even the expressions on their faces were clear. Traitor! When Immortal Emperor Go Chen saw the 4 clan masters appear, he immediately scolded them. Why did you all set up the Khanate 4 cardinal formation to seal the Longevity Town and trap me here? Your Majesty! Dongfang Qianghao and the others didn't glare at him. Instead, they bowed respectfully and said, since the ancient immortals and Buddhas joined forces to destroy the Tao, the military school has made outstanding contributions in battle. Since then, they have taken control of the Immortal Palace, and we Confucian cultivators have all submitted. However, since His Majesty took over the hidden immortal continent, although he barely made some achievements, it was easy for him to monopolize power. Especially in the last 1,000 years, His Majesty was headstrong and self-opinionated, listened to slander, and favored treacherous rebels. He was muddle-headed and tyrannical, which really hurt the hearts of Confucian cultivators and philosophers. Ever since the militarists took over the Immortal Palace, the 4 great aristocratic families have been living in seclusion. We don't care about the worldly affairs of the hidden immortal continent and only support the government of the Immortal Palace. Today, the patriarchs of the 100 schools have written a blood letter to the people, begging us to come out and remove the emperor from his position. We will return the righteousness of Confucian cultivators and restore the stability of Confucian cultivators. We, the 4 great clans, place the foundation of Confucian cultivators as our priority and place the livelihood of the people as our priority. We write the 4 great clans' declaration to exterminate Gaochen to the world so that it can be heard properly. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Immortal Emperor Go Chen was furious. He swung the Son of Heaven's sword at the 4 clan masters. Unfortunately, although the sword's light could stabilize mountains and rivers, it had no effect on the 4 figures. Dongfang Qianghao continued, we recognize that His Majesty has worked hard even if he didn't make any contributions, so we will give His Majesty 10 days to consider. If His Majesty kills Xiaofan and abdicates, we will give His Majesty enough face and also make His Majesty the master of the Tushita Palace. If His Majesty doesn't kill Xiaofan and abdicate at dawn 10 days later, then we will write the 4 great clans' declaration to exterminate Gaochen and attack the Immortal Palace first, then destroy the Fortune Gate and cleanse the land of our Confucian cultivators. With that, Dongfang Qianghao raised his hand and took out a piece of paper. He read, the fake Sun clan of the Lin dynasty is not gentle in nature. Shichong Zi Wei Chen, once a servant in plain clothes. Late in life, he disturbed the Immortal Palace. Concealed the previous emperor's selfishness, trapping our emperor in a trap. With lizards as the heart, jackals and wolves as the second nature. Close to evil, killing the loyal and good. Killing the elder sister and brother, killing the emperor and killing the mother. Gods and men are jealous, heaven and earth cannot tolerate. Harboring evil intentions, coveting divine artifacts. The emperor's beloved daughter, secluded in another palace, the alliance of thieves, entrusted with heavy responsibilities. Minghu. Huazi Meng did not do anything, Zhu Suho is dead. Swallow pecks the imperial grandson, knowing that the Han dynasty is coming to an end. Knowing the rapid decline of Xiaoting. Today's emperor is tainted, his virtue is not reported, and he is guilty of 10 crimes. First, he indulged the Daoist sect, appeased the Hongmeng, left Penglai, and did not destroy the Daoist sect. Second, he observed the rise of creation, did not engage in war, and lived with it. Third, he used the name of a Confucian cultivator to confer the title of the master of the Wuxia Palace. He was even more shameless, using the name of Thunder Master to commit immoral acts. Fourth, he used the Daoist sect's weapon to kill the elites of the Confucian cultivators, disrupting the peace of the four aristocratic families. Fifth, for the emperor's lack of virtue, causing chaos in the 9 states, and billions of lives could not be pacified. Sixth, for the emperor's lack of virtue, he indulged the 9th princess in the mortal world, fell in love with the remnants of the Daoist sect, and caused chaos. Seventh, for the emperor's lack of virtue, he neglected the empress, and favored the flower medicine palace. Eighth, for the emperor's lack of virtue, he trusted close officials, causing chaos in the Tianji Hall. Ninth, for the emperor's lack of virtue, he was indecisive. Seeking scriptures in paradise seemed like a grand undertaking, but in reality, he was defeated, extremely shameless. 10th, for the emperor's lack of diligence, he allowed the Buddhist sect to invade and expand the hidden immortals. From then on, the hidden immortals were not the hidden immortals of the Confucian cultivators. The 4 aristocratic families' Confucian cultivators were the old officials, the emperor. He received the emperor's achievements, and the kindness of the emperor's court. Sun Weizi's joy and sorrow were justified. How could Yuan Junshen's tears be in vain? He used anger to calm the world. Because of the world's disappointment, he followed the heart of the universe. He raised the banner of righteousness to clear away the evildoers. The south connected to the 100 the north to the 3 rivers, the cavalry in groups, connected to the jade axis. The red millet of the hailing mausoleum, the accumulation of the warehouse is endless, the yellow banner of Jiangpu, how far away is the merit of restoring the country. The sound of the court moves, the north wind rises, the sword chi rushes, the south is peaceful. The mountain collapses with a whistle, the wind and clouds change color with a shout. With this to control the enemy, what enemy could not be destroyed? With this, what merit could not be subdued? The emperor's rank was either hiding immortals, or assisting the emperor's relatives, or being heavily entrusted with words, or receiving orders from the emperor. The words are still in the ear, loyalty will not forget the heart. A grain of earth is not dry, how can the 6 feet of solitude be supported? If he can turn the disaster into a blessing, he can send the past to the emperor's residence, and not abolish the emperor's order, he will be rewarded with the same title as the mountains and rivers. If he is attached to a poor city, wandering the wrong path, and ignorant of the signs of the past, he will be punished in the future. Please take a look at today's domain. Whose world is it? Dongfang Qianghao recited the declaration of the 4 great clans against Gaochen with a sonorous and forceful tone. It was like thunder or war drums. The area within 1,000 miles of Longevity Town was filled with grief and indignation. It was as if Dongfang Qianghao's 10 sins were true. Not to mention the mortals, even Xiaohua secretly nodded after hearing this. This declaration was written very well. Anyone who heard it would feel that immortal Emperor Gaochen was not virtuous. The 4 great clans had no choice but to do this. All of the righteousness fell on the 4 great clans' side. After Dongfang Qianghao finished reciting the declaration, he didn't stop for a moment. His figure immediately disappeared, and the clan masters of the other 3 clans also disappeared. After the 4 great clans were gone, immortal Emperor Gaochen and the others looked at each other with a bit of dismay. It was very clear that the 4 great clans were using the banner of cleaning up the immortal palace to force immortal Emperor Gaochen to abdicate. If it was before, immortal Emperor Gaochen wouldn't hesitate to order his troops to destroy the Fortune Gate in order to protect the immortal palace. However, at this time, the Fortune Gate's wings were fully formed. Not to mention the immortal palace, even the 4 great clans couldn't be seen in Xiaohua's eyes. How could immortal Emperor Gaochen dare to send troops to kill the Fortune Dao Palace? The more immortal Emperor Gaochen destroyed the Dao Palace, the more he would be killed by Xiaohua. In the end, he would still have to abdicate. Especially today, in Longevity Town, if Xiaohua dared to say he was second, no one would dare to say they were first. Who had the qualifications and ability to destroy the Fortune Gate? Because of this, the four great clans gave up on the five-energy origin law and directly targeted Xiaohua and Immortal Emperor Gaochun's position. This was a blatant display of their ambition. If it wasn't for Gaochun abdicating and killing Xiaohua, the innate Four Directions Grand Formation wouldn't have been activated. Immortal Emperor Gaochun was the leader of the Immortal Palace. After hearing the declaration, he immediately calmed down and sheathed the Son of Heaven's sword at his waist. He didn't even have the intention to discuss with Taibai Jinxing and Sun Jian. He simply returned to the sky above the tidal river temple, thinking about how to kill Xiaohua or how to escape. Seeing Immortal Emperor Gaochun's reaction, Sun Jian glanced at Taibai Jinxing. Taibai Jinxing's face was also filled with worry. He glanced at Xiaohua and opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. Damn it! The golden-winged Great Peng laughed and shouted, "You humans are really interesting. If you want to fight, then fight. Why do you need to make a reason?" However, this declaration is really well written. This saint also wants to punch Gaochun a few times after hearing it. Ha ha ha. Xiaohua coldly glanced at the silent Gaochun. There were currently four forces within 1,000 li of this space: the Confucian cultivators, the Buddhist sect, the Taoist gate, and the demonic race. If Immortal Emperor Gaochun wanted to deal with Xiaohua, he could only join hands with the Buddhist sect or the demonic race, just like how they suppressed the Grand Mist Ancestor. But now, not to mention the Buddhist sect and the demonic race being on good terms with Xiaohua, even the Grand Mist Ancestor dared to appear in front of Immortal Emperor Gaochun. How could Immortal Emperor Gaochun deal with Xiaohua? If he pointed his sword at Xiaohua, he would only die a more miserable death. Therefore, Xiaohua looked at Gaochun, pondered for a moment, and said, "Your Majesty. Give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and thank you for all your support." Chapter 46-46. What's the matter? Immortal Emperor Gaochun's tone was indifferent and even a bit arrogant. It was as if he wasn't affected by the declaration at all. He didn't even feel the awkwardness and danger of his situation. He simply asked, "If you want to capture me and go to the four clans to claim credit, then you have made a mistake in your calculations." Xiaohua was furious after hearing this and said, "Gaochun, don't think that just because you have the clear heavenly mirror, no one can do anything to you. You have the clear heavenly mirror and a 9th-grade immortal palace Wensheng. I also have millions of soldiers in my Kunlun mirror. If I want to capture you, it will be as easy as flipping my hand. Master Xiaolei, Master Xiaolei." Taibai Jinxing hurriedly flew over and bowed. "If you have anything to say, please say it." Phew. Xiaohua took a deep breath, but he immediately regretted it. He calmed himself down and pointed below, saying, "There are millions of mortals within 1,000 miles of the Longevity Town. They should be the first victims since the Longevity Town has been sealed off by the four great clans. Moreover, they are powerless and have no way to resist. Therefore, if possible, Your Majesty, please use the clear heavenly mirror at the right time to capture these mortals." "Who told you that my clear heavenly mirror can capture mortals?" Immortal Emperor Gaochun said coldly, "My clear heavenly mirror is the imperial artifact of the hidden immortal continent." Humph. Xiaohua knew that he wouldn't reveal the secret of the clear heavenly mirror until the very last moment. Therefore, he wouldn't capture the mortals of the Longevity Town in front of everyone. Therefore, Xiaohua coldly harumphed and ignored Huang Xiaolong. His figure flickered as he flew to the north and south, bringing all the Fortune Gate disciples into Shenhua continent. After all, the 40,000 disciples couldn't do anything in the innate Four Directions formation. They would only be fighting for air with the mortals of the Longevity Town. After everything was done, Xiaohua waved his hand and called Wenchu, Celestial Being, and the Thunderbolt Immortal to the front. He said, "Fellow Taoists, what do you think of the current situation?" Seeing that Xiaohua had gathered his clones together, Feng Wu looked at the golden-winged rock and said, "Rock Sage, let's go take a look as well. Now that we're all on the same boat, let's help as much as we can." The golden-winged rock naturally didn't have any objections, and it flew over to Xiao Hua's side along with Feng Wu. At this moment, Wen Chu frowned and said, "We naturally have to break through the restrictions now. But all of our methods are useless in the face of this innate four corners formation. Perhaps only Reverend Yun's dragon item can do it? It's a pity that Reverend Yun did not come with us, as we are currently trapped in the four directions formation, and we can't contact him." Thunder Reverend said with a wry smile, "Otherwise, I think we would be able to work together. The innate four-way great array is too strange." Xiao Hua shook his head slightly. Even that dragon artifact might not be able to succeed. Therefore, I'm afraid that we won't be able to break the formation by force. It's simple. The golden-winged rock smiled and said, "We can just capture old man Gauchen and hand him over to the four great families. As for what they said about first entering the immortal palace, then exterminating the Taoism sect, it's just an excuse. Now that the fortune gate is so powerful, the four great families might not have the energy to deal with the fortune gate. It's already good enough that they can deal with the military school in a short period of time. This is the four great families' original intention." Wen Chu smiled and said, "They want to borrow Master Zhao's hands to capture immortal Emperor Gauchen. In the future, they will use this as an excuse to join forces with the 100 schools of thought to exterminate the Taoism sect once again. The Dipankara archaic Buddha is determined not to interfere in this dispute." Xiao Hua raised his head and looked at the Buddhists who were reciting Buddhist scriptures with their eyes closed. He said, "I'm sure you've seen through the complexity of this matter." "Of course. These old bald donkeys are cunning." The golden-winged rock sneered, "The four great families besieging the longevity town is due to the internal strife of the Confucian cultivators. Although the Taoism sect is involved, it has nothing to do with the Buddhism sect. They won't let out a single word. This has always been their style. When they have to bear the consequences, they will shrink back faster than anyone else. When there are benefits, they will fly faster than anyone else." That Mahavairākana archaic Buddha probably felt that the sutra praying in nirvana this time wasn't good and knew that someone would cause trouble. That's why he didn't dare to come over and ask the Dipankara archaic Buddha to come over. "Oh, this is called tribulation facing in the Buddhism sect." Seeing how the golden-winged rock wasn't interested in the Buddhism sect, Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Actually, Rock Sage doesn't have to care about it. You just need to rest. How can this sage be compared to those old bald donkeys?" The golden-winged rock said proudly, "Naturally, this sage wouldn't care about the four great families targeting old man Gauchen. However, the four great families even schemed against this sage. How can this sage let this go? Moreover, this sage and Dragon Master Xiao don't know each other. This sage is very willing to befriend Dragon Master Xiao. Whatever Dragon Master Xiao wants to do, this sage will support it." "Good." Xiao Hua laughed and raised his palm, saying, "A rock sage like this is also someone this Xiao is willing to befriend." "Good." The golden-winged rock was overjoyed. He hurriedly flapped his wings and clapped with Xiao Hua's palm. After the palm strike, Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Now that this Xiao has obtained Rock Sage's support, why should I be afraid of this formation not being broken?" Instead, it was the golden-winged rock who was a little embarrassed and said in a low voice, "Master Xiao Lei thinks too highly of this sage." Previously, this sage and the Phoenix Sage had already tried. "We didn't have any effective abilities." Hearing the golden-winged rock being so straightforward, Xiao Hua didn't understand the hidden meaning in the human's words. He nodded and said, "While a single person can surpass others and do what 100 people can do. However, if 100 people work together, what they can do will surpass that of a single person. Breaking the formation isn't just a matter of abilities. It's also a matter of methods. We still need to work together to succeed. Seeing that the golden-winged rock still didn't understand, Xiaohua said even more straightforwardly, also, this Xiao doesn't need any abilities to help, as long as Rock Sage has the heart. There are still 10 days until the deadline. In the end, if there is no other way, this Xiao can just keep the mortals in the Longevity Town into the Kunlun Mirror. Isn't it just being trapped in the innate four directions formation? If nothing happens in 10 days, nothing happens in 100 days, if the four families have the ability to trap this Xiao for 100 years. There's no need for that. Feng Wu laughed and said, as long as the Thunder Sound Temple and Fortune Gate don't return after half a year, they will definitely come to investigate. At that time, the four families will be in trouble. Xiaohua smiled and said, there's no need to wait that long. 10 days later, the four families will definitely make their move. After the Immortal Palace falls, that will be the time for the Four Directions formation to be activated. The ones who should be restless right now should be the Immortal Emperor, not us. Then why did fellow Taoist call us here? The Celestial was confused when he heard this. Naturally, I want fellow Taoists to look around and think of a way to break the formation. Xiaohua explained, although this Immortal Emperor Gaochen is a little sinister, he is still Xinxin's father. If he controls the Immortal Palace, it will be the most beneficial for our Fortune Gate. If the four families control the Immortal Palace, not to mention the huge war that will kill many people, just the grudge between the Fortune Gate and the Nangong family will make our Fortune Gate fight with the four families sooner or later. Although the Fortune Gate is strong, the Tao Gate is not. After a long war, our Tao Gate will be destroyed. A single branch is not spring, but 100 flowers blooming is spring. Good. This sage understands. The golden-winged Great Peng nodded and said, this sage will go to the north to investigate and see if I can find any flaws. Seeing the golden-winged Great Peng leave in high spirits, Feng Wu and the others also cupped their hands and flew away. The clones understood that what Xiaohua said was only a last resort. If they could break the seal and wipe out the four great clans, this was the best opportunity. The Four Directions formation surrounded the Longevity Town within 1,000 li. Xiaohua's divine sense swept through and understood everything. The mountain range outside the town, the paddy fields, and the Liao River at the side of the Jiangchao Ridge were all clearly seen. In the following days, Xiaohua did not dare to slack off. He opened his illusion breaker eye and scanned the Four Directions formation within 1,000 li, not missing a single spot. The more Xiaohua looked, the colder his heart became. This Four Directions formation was indeed as Immortal Emperor Gaochen said, it was a Xiantian Grand formation. It could not be compared to ordinary formations, defensive formations, or Buddhist formations. Within the clouds, there were no flaws at all. Even when Xiaohua's illusion breaker eye's silver light beam fell into the clouds, it could not cause any fluctuations. In the end, Xiaohua helplessly stopped and stood in front of the mountain range like a crouching bull. At this time, it was also a moonlit night. There seemed to be some wind and rain high up in the sky, but this wind and rain could not fall on the mountain range. Xiaohua looked at the place where Lu Yi and Yuanya had a barbecue several hundred years ago. After several hundred years of wind and rain, this mountain range had changed a bit. There were fewer rocks and more trees. Even the cries of beasts in the forest had increased. However, in Xiaohua's ears, the cries of the beasts in the night were still sorrowful and helpless. Hearing this, Xiaohua's heart was also uncomfortable. In the distance of the mountain range, there were a few small villages. At this time, it should be night time, but many of the houses in the village were lit. Clearly, in these few days, some people had discovered that something was wrong, and the people were a bit anxious. Sai, the Black Wind Ridge is not too far from here. If this Four Directions formation was a bit bigger, perhaps it could enclose the Black Wind Ridge. Xiaohua thought to himself. However, since this four directions formation can even seal the power of faith, the teleportation channel should not be able to be used. Even if the Black Wind Ridge is here, it should not be able to be used. Thinking of the Black Wind Ridge, Xiaohua's heart suddenly moved. He looked at Liao Jiang again. At this time, Liao Jiang was like stagnant water. There was no water flowing in, and no water flowing out. Previously, Xiaohua had already used his illusion breaker eye to see that it was also sealed by the four directions formation. Chapter 46-47. However, Xiaohua thought to himself, that day when I fell into the eye of the sea in the West Sea, I escaped from the spatial vein in the Liao River. Although the Liao River has been sealed off by the innate five directions great formation, there might be some small spatial veins that can escape the seal of the four directions great formation. Moreover, I obtained the Yuzhou cauldron in Liao River. I remember Sun Jian said that the places guarded by the 9 provinces cauldrons are mostly connected to the 9 underworlds. Now that the 9 provinces cauldrons are gone, maybe the four directions great formation has sealed the 9 underworlds. If I want to break this four directions great formation, I naturally have to explore Liao River. Thinking about this, Xiaohua flew towards Liao River again, although he had already carefully explored the entire Liao River. Xiaohua landed on Liao River and didn't explore again. Instead, he flew several hundred li away to find the place where he obtained the Yuzhou cauldron. Unfortunately, when he arrived there, Xiaohua's body couldn't fly anymore. When Xiaohua entered the bottom of Liao River again, his divine sense swept over and looked regretfully at the place that was almost within reach. He smiled bitterly and said, Dongfang Qiong is really good at scheming. This innate four directions great formation just happens to be where the Yuzhou cauldron is suppressing the netherworld energy. I can't even get half an inch closer. Xiaohua had already used his illusion breaker eye to see where Liao River was. He knew that this place was also airtight. The water stopped flowing here and couldn't pass through at all. After thinking for a while, Xiaohua patted his forehead and unwillingly opened his illusion breaker eye again. He looked at the place where the Yuzhou cauldron was. The southwest was where the white clouds and the flame clouds intersected. Xiaohua's eyes were filled with clouds and he couldn't see any gaps at all. When Xiaohua activated his illusion breaker eye, a silver-white beam of light roared and fell into the clouds. The clouds were still like cotton and didn't move at all. They didn't even rotate. Forget it. Xiaohua knew that he had hit a wall again. He withdrew the beam of light from his illusion breaker eye and was about to leave. It was at this moment that Xiaohua suddenly froze. His entire body trembled as he cried out in shock, How? How is this possible? Xiaohua hurriedly closed his delirium eye and slowly moved to the side. After flying for another 30 meters, he stopped again and opened his delirium eye again. He saw a layer of silt in front of him. Xiaohua's delirium eye actually saw a familiar blue jade necklace. Isn't this the water phase jade luo of the Xianyuan water control flag that Xiaohua saw in the Xianyuan water palace at the bottom of the river? This jade necklace was also in the shape of a cloud. It was extremely harmonious with the white clouds and the flame clouds. If Xiaohua hadn't landed here to look carefully, he definitely wouldn't have found it. Impossible. Impossible. Xiaohua's body trembled as he thought to himself, this place should be the location of the Yuzhou cauldron. This Xiao has already carefully examined it before. A few days ago, this water blue jade was definitely not here. Moreover, this Xianyuan water control flag Xing Luo is a great enemy of this Xiao's devil saber. If it had been there before, this Xiao's devil saber would have reacted. In other words, this water phase jade luo only appeared recently. However, this water phase jade luo belongs to the Xianyuan water control flag, and the flag is in Xin's hands. Xin was also imprisoned in the Heaven's Punishment Prison crystal by that damned Gaochen geezer. How could this flag be here? Could it be? Could it be? Thinking of this, Xiaohua suddenly recalled Taibai Jinxing's words at the end of the sutra, praying in extreme bliss. Xiaohua suddenly became excited and thought, could it be that Gaochen Geezer actually placed the new heaven's punishment prison crystal here? He wanted to wait until after the sutra, praying in extreme bliss, and let Taibai Jinxing speak. He used the sutra praying ceremony as an excuse to release Xian from the heaven's punishment prison crystal. Damn it, could it be that this Xiao wronged immortal Emperor Gaochen? Yes, it's possible. He originally wanted to do so, but because of Xiao Mao's repeated appearances that disrupted his plans, he changed his mind and didn't pardon Xian. Moreover, it was because he knew that Xian's Xianyuan water control flag was here that he was so calm. He was waiting for the reactions of the Supremes, waiting for this Zhao's reaction. This bastard actually had such a backup plan. If that's the case, then this Xiao has given this Xiao a good opportunity. This Xiao doesn't need to look at immortal Emperor Gaochen's face anymore. This Xiao will find the new heaven's punishment prison crystal and see what that bastard has to say. That's not right. If Xian was imprisoned in the heaven's punishment prison crystal, how could the jade luo from the Xianyuan water control flag enter this place? Oh, I see. It must be that Xian used the Xianyuan water control flag to send the jade luo through the heaven's punishment prison crystal to seek help from the outside. If anyone could see the jade luo, then they would naturally be able to find the heaven's punishment prison crystal. And today, the four clans just happened to place the innate four corners grand formation on top of the heaven's punishment prison crystal to suppress Xian, so the jade luo was integrated into the innate four corners grand formation. The special thing is that if I'm not mistaken, the Xianyuan water control flag is one of the innate five directions flags, and this jade luo is one of the clouds in the innate five directions grand formation. It is normal for the jade luo to be able to enter this place. If that's the case, then I only need to find the heaven's punishment prison crystal and rescue Xian. Wouldn't her Xianyuan water control flag be able to break the innate four corners grand formation? But right now, the heaven's punishment prison crystal is not inside the innate four corners grand formation, but below it. How can I obtain it? Xiaohua closed his delirium eyes and landed on the bottom of Liao River. His hand pinched his chin as he pondered. After half a cup of tea's time, Xiaohua's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. Subsequently, Xiaohua called Tianren, Thunderbolt Immortal, and Wen Chu to the side and told them the cause of the matter. When the doppelgangers heard this, they were all overjoyed. Xiaohua then said, "Fellow Taoists, I'll have to trouble you to confine the area within a dozen miles of this place. Don't let Gaochen Old Man and Dipankara Old Buddha see anything." All right. Celestial Being, Thunderbolt Immortal, and Wen Chu knew what Xiaohua wanted to do, so they didn't dare to be careless. They flew back for several miles and activated their divine abilities to seal the area around them. Xiaohua scanned his surroundings with his divine sense. Seeing that he was absolutely safe, he slightly extended his left arm. Boom! Demonic energy rushed out from his arm, quickly covering his entire body. In a moment, a demonic god Xiaohua appeared, and the demonic blade murder appeared from Xiaohua's left arm. Seeing the devil saber appear, Xiaohua didn't hesitate. With a schwa sound, it fell on top of the innate four-way great array. However, the place where the demonic saber murder landed was precisely the few pieces of aqua-blue jade above the four directions great array. These aqua-blue jade were different from the flame clouds and white clouds that formed the great array. Although the clouds under the demonic saber murder were swallowed by the demonic saber murder, the surrounding clouds swarmed over, leaving no gap at all. However, the aqua-blue jade beads where the demonic saber murder landed actually revealed their shape in an instant, and then withered and disappeared like a flash in the pan. However, just a moment after the jade beads disappeared, woo-woo. An extremely large number of jade beads began to surge out crazily. These jade beads could be seen with the naked eye, and they pounced towards the demonic saber murder. And the demonic saber murder didn't need Xiaohua to activate it at all. With a AOAO, demonic energy and demonic light were produced, violently pouncing towards the aqua-blue jade beads. Hundreds of thousands of years of suppression had already made the demonic saber murder and the Xianyuan water control flag become mortal enemies. When they met each other's aura, they immediately began to fight and kill. Although he knew that the Xianyuan water control flag wasn't afraid of the demonic saber murder, Xiaohua still carefully controlled the demonic saber murder's demonic energy. But contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, in just half a cup of tea's time, the aqua-blue jade beads suddenly flourished, gushing out more violently than a fountain. Within the gushing flow, Xian's joyful mood was revealed. Xian. Xiaohua was also ecstatic, hastily putting away the demonic saber murder. The aqua-blue jade beads didn't disappear, but instead surged even more. In the time it took to smoke a cigarette, the aqua-blue jade beads covered an area of several li, forcibly pushing the flame clouds and the white clouds apart. Xiaohua's figure fell into the jade beads. The jade beads didn't stop Xiaohua, but instead dodged one after another, revealing a gap that was neither big nor small. Xiaohua, with an excited mood, rushed into the gap, and saw that the jade beads had given birth to another paperweight that was several li in size. This paperweight was golden in color, and its surface was engraved with countless ancient inscriptions. These inscriptions emitted light and shadows, and countless Confucian cultivators' fortunes were like dragons swimming in this light and shadow. These dragons' movements seemed to have no order, but it was extremely mysterious. It tightly sealed the area under the paperweight, and it basically couldn't leak out any aura. Moreover, under these light and shadow, there were even more mountains, rivers, and plants falling down. Could it be that there were tens of thousands of these overlapping images? However, right now, outside of the paperweight, there were several layers of flame clouds and white clouds twisting around. The originally mysterious dragon's fortunes were forcibly blocked, and the seamless overlapping light and shadow also had a few flaws. The aqua-blue jade beads were rushing out from these flaws. Fellow Taoist Wuxia. Xiaohua saw this paperweight and felt a thick imperial aura, as well as a mountainous power of order. Xiaohua immediately understood that this was an item from Immortal Emperor Go Chen's immortal palace to suppress the Tian Fa prison crystal. He didn't hesitate and anxiously said in his mind, "Quickly come here." When Xiaohua's heart was moved, Wen Chu's figure flashed and appeared next to Xiaohua. After seeing the paperweight and the three clouds on the side of the paperweight, Wen Chu couldn't help but smile. "Congratulations, fellow Taoist. This is the Jiji paperweight on the jade table in the Lingyun Palace. It is used to place the spring and autumn brush used by the immortal emperor to write decrees." This old man heard from Sun Jian that it was the immortal emperor's favorite. Under this Jiji paperweight, it must be Xian. Is there even a need to say it? Xiaohua smiled and said, "The Xianyuan water control flag has appeared, so how could Xian not be here?" Old man Gaochen was too cruel. He actually threw the heaven's punishment prison crystal here and even used some bullshit paperweight to suppress it. No wonder even the celestial empress couldn't find Xian's aura. No wonder this guy isn't in a hurry. It seems like this is his backup plan. Chapter 46-48. Now that we've found Xian's whereabouts, everything will be solved. Let that old man Gaochen just watch. While speaking, Wen Chu raised his hand and clapped. 5-colored true energy gushed out. For safety's sake, Wen Chu added 3-colored true energy into the 5-colored true energy. When the 5-colored true energy turned into a huge hand and slammed down, the fortune roared like a dragon and broke free from the paperweight, pouncing on Wen Chu. Under the attack of the fortune of Confucian cultivators, Wen Chu's huge hand showed signs of collapsing. Ha! Xiaohua smiled and said, I've said it before. The fortune of Confucian cultivators is just a strand of Reverend Yun's qi. Although Reverend Yun is not here, I can still control it. Otherwise, wouldn't my title of Dragon Master be in vain? While speaking, Xiaohua opened his mouth and was about to spit out a dragon breath. But after thinking for a while, he reached out his hand and grabbed the red dragon crown, putting it on his head with a flip of his hand. Aoo! The brilliance of the red dragon crown fell, and lines of dragon runes emerged from Xiaohua's body. He let out a long roar that sounded like a dragon's roar. Then, he spat out a mouthful of dragon breath that landed on the dragon-like fortune. Roar! The dragon-like fortune was also very strong. It roared and pounced on the dragon breath, and in just a moment, it was entangled with the dragon breath. Ha ha ha! Wen Chu laughed heartily. His large hand fell from the side. Under the five-colored cloud, the light that was lifted turned into many inscriptions on the armor. They fell like dead tadpoles. When these inscriptions landed on the aqua-blue jade, they turned into lonely strokes. The huge five-colored hand fell on the paperweight and grabbed it. Then, Wen Chu roared, Rise! Rumble! Under the Liao River, a loud rumble could be heard. The golden paperweight was slowly pulled out from the ground by Wen Chu. The whole underground shook, and the heaven and earth order rushed out of its confinement uncontrollably. The Liao River, which was like stagnant water, suddenly became a huge wave. However, under the confinement of celestial being and lightning immortal, the huge wave calmed down in a moment. Of course, how could immortal Emperor Gaochen and the others not notice Liao Zhang's momentum and the heaven and earth order that represented the immortal palace? Especially since the source of the order of heaven and earth was at the bottom of Liao River? Immortal Emperor Gaochen's expression changed. Seeing Wen Chu pull out the paperweight, Xiaohua's heart beat wildly. He opened his mouth, and with a roar, he swallowed the destiny that was fighting the dragon breath into his stomach. Then he waved his hand, and the five-colored hand of lightning fell and merged with Wen Chu's five-colored hand of true energy. Rise! Xiaohua also roared and pulled out the golden paperweight all of a sudden. Then, Xiaohua decisively released his consciousness and rolled it on the golden paperweight. Whoosh! Instantly, the paperweight on the immortal palace's Lingyun Hall changed to Zhao's surname. With the disappearance of the Shiji paperweight, the boundless water-blue-colored pearls crazily gushed out. Xiaohua's figure once again flashed and was about to rush in, wanting to find a new heaven's punishment prison crystal to imprison. At this time, a graceful figure flashed inside the pearls. With a smile on her face, Xin appeared in front of Xiaohua with tears in her eyes. For some unknown reason, seeing the smile on Xin's face and the tears at the corner of her eyes, Xiaohua's heart was filled with great joy. It was as if his previous actions of forcing the southern heavenly gate, fighting at the Sunset Cliff, and now being trapped at the Longevity Town, everything he had done had turned into fleeting clouds. It was as if nothing in this world could compare to a trace of a smile from this woman before him. For the sake of half a teardrop at the corner of her eye, he was willing to use all of his abilities to erase it. Xin. Xiaohua called out in a low voice. His right hand reached out and pulled Xin into his embrace. Xin clearly agreed and did not resist at all. It meekly threw itself into Xiaohua's embrace and blissfully placed its face on Xiaohua's chest. Its pair of hands also circled around Xiaohua. On its left hand, there was a small flag. Wasn't that the Xianyuan water control flag? When the two of them met, their gazes only met for a moment. They only said two words and then each other's warmth. All words were powerless and pale at this moment. The pearls fluttered around the two of them. It was like Xin's shy and happy mood, and it was also like Xiao Hua's peace of mind after embracing his lover. After half a cup of tea's time, Wen Chu coughed and said behind Xian, fellow immortal Xiao. Xian was shocked and hurriedly pushed Xiao Hua away. She struggled out of Xiao Hua's embrace with a red face and watery eyes. When Xian saw Wen Chu's cultivation, she couldn't help but turn pale with fright. She hurriedly bowed and said, "Junior." "Shoo." Xiao Hua raised his hand and stopped Xian. He whispered, "No need to be polite with him. He's my good friend." Her hand took the opportunity to grab Xian's slightly warm and soft hand. Why are you also?" Xian immediately realized Xiao Hua's strength was unfathomable. She cried out in shock and tried to pull her hand out of Xiao Hua's grasp. "Let's talk about it after we get out." Xiao Hua couldn't bear to let go of Xian's hand. He firmly grasped Xian's hand and explained, "Right now, we're trapped in the innate four-way formation. Do we still need your Xianyuan water control flag to help us out?" "Oh." When Xian first escaped, she thought everything in front of her was done by Xiao Hua to save her. When she heard Xiao Hua's words, she hurriedly looked up. With Xian's cultivation, she naturally could not see the connate four corners formation. However, as she waved the Xianyuan water control flag in her hand, the flaming clouds of the floating flame flag and the plain clouds of the white cloud-bound flag immediately appeared. Xian didn't say much and only asked, "How can I help you break the formation?" Xiao Hua naturally didn't know how to break the formation. He was afraid that Xian's escape would attract the attention of the four great families and create some other variables. He only explained the situation of the innate four-way formation. In the end, he said, "Since your Xianyuan water control flag is one of the innate five-direction flags, this water-colored pearl can also be integrated into the innate four-way formation. Then, it might be able to create a flaw in the innate four-way formation." "I understand." Xian heard clearly and said with a sweet smile, "Don't worry, Xiao Lang. I've already successfully refined the Xianyuan water control flag. Facing the four almost ownerless four-way flags, creating a flaw is as easy as flipping my hand." Xian, you're awesome." Xiao Hua was overjoyed. Looking at Xian's smiling face, he couldn't help but raise his hand and use his left thumb to stroke Xian's dark eyebrows. Although this action wasn't as intimate as kissing, Xian liked it very much. Her lips smiled like a crescent moon and she gently pulled her hand back. "Xiao Lang, watch how I cast the spell." "Okay." Xiao Hua smiled and nodded, but his figure was unwilling to leave Xian even half a step. Xian stole a glance at Wen Chu in the distance and fiercely glared at Xiao Hua a few times. However, seeing that Xiao Hua's face was as thick as a city wall and was unwilling to leave, Xian was helpless. However, she felt even more sweetness in her heart. Xian raised her hand. Without activating it, a faint five-colored true qi gushed out from her arm and landed on the Xianyuan water control flag. When the Xianyuan water control flag received the true qi, it immediately flashed with a water blue color. As the flag fluttered, an endless amount of jade flew out and rushed towards Xiao Hua's head. There wasn't any sound, but as the jade flew past, the white clouds and flame clouds appeared like a tide and were squeezed to the sides. And in the middle of the jade, a gap of several tens of feet was created. "Awesome!" Xiao Hua praised and quickly kissed Xian's forehead. Although this kiss was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water, Xian's face immediately turned crimson. Xiao Hua ignored Xian's rolling eyes and hurriedly said, Xian, when you break through the seal, listen to my explanation. I'm sure you know that this is the Liao River beside the Longevity Town. Today is the day when the sutra seeking of extreme bliss ends. I, Xiaofan, and the Immortal Palace, Thunder Monastery, and Great Sage Hall are here to welcome Xuanzang's return. However, who would have thought that the four great families would lay down this early heaven four cardinal formation, trapping the immortal emperor, the Dipankara archaic Buddha, and the golden-winged great rock within. Hearing that the immortal emperor was here, a trace of panic appeared in Xian's eyes. Seeing this, Xiaofan didn't dare to explain further. However, he couldn't not explain and hurriedly said, "Don't be afraid. I've already gone to the Immortal Palace to ask for your hand in marriage. The Immortal Emperor promised that as long as I can save you from the Heaven Punishment Prison Crystal, he would agree to my dot." Before Xiaofan could finish speaking, Xian was so embarrassed that his neck turned red. He hurriedly kicked Xiaofan lightly, not allowing him to continue speaking. Xiaofan had never treated Wen Chu as an outsider. He also didn't expect the calm and decisive Xian to be so shy. He hurriedly stopped and said, all right. I won't say any more. I'm just letting you know about the current situation. Moreover, from the looks of it, you're also His Majesty's backup plan. However, I've already discovered it. Now, I'll make him suffer in silence. Yes, I understand. Xian nodded. I'll activate the Profound Origin Water Control Flag. Darling Xiao, you can inform His Majesty and the others to come over. Once there's a passage, we'll be able to escape. All right. Xiaofan smiled and nodded. Then, he said to Wen Chu, then, I'll have to trouble you, fellow immortal. Go and inform Immortal Emperor Gaochen, the golden-winged great rock, and the Dipankara archaic Buddha. All right. Wen Chu smiled and left. How could he not understand Xiaohua's intentions? If Xiaofan wanted to inform them, why would he need to leave? Xiaofan only needed to inform the heavenly being and the thunderbolt hermit, and they would be able to inform Immortal Emperor Gaochen when they removed the restrictions. Seeing Wen Chu leave, Xiaofan said in a low voice, Xian, it's all my fault. I didn't expect you to do so much for me. It's all right. Seeing that there was no one around, Xian regained her calm and smiled, aren't you here now? I'm very happy. Give it a recommendation vote, collect it, or tip it. Thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-49. Then. Are you still going back to the Immortal Palace? Xiaofan hurriedly asked. This was what he wanted to ask. A trace of desolation and helplessness appeared in Xian's eyes. After thinking for a moment, he replied, of course I don't want to. However, if there is no marriage agreement, no matchmaker, and no orders from my parents, I am really not suitable to stay by your side. After all, I'm still the 9th princess of the Immortal Palace. I can't let others laugh at me, and I can't embarrass His Majesty. All right. Hearing Xian's first sentence, Xiaofan felt relieved. He smiled and said, I won't make things difficult for you. That's great. As he spoke, Xian's little finger scratched Xiaohua's palm as he whispered, if there's no one around, you can do this. But when His Majesty comes later, you can't do it. I know. Xiaohua's heart was bursting with joy. He held Xian's soft hand a few times before letting go because Immortal Emperor Gaochen's clear gaze was sweeping over from afar. Your Majesty. Xian didn't dare to be careless and quickly spoke after seeing Immortal Emperor Gaochen's figure. Immortal Emperor Gaochen waved his hand and said, no need to be so courteous. I have suppressed you here to prevent any changes in the sutra seeking of extreme bliss. Yes, Your Majesty. Xian was even more disappointed after hearing Immortal Emperor Gaochen's cold tone. She answered and activated the jade bracelet again. Boom, boom, boom. It was also at this moment that outside the jade bracelet, there was a sudden great tremor. The jade bracelet began to swirl in the air, and the several hundred feet wide passageway suddenly shrunk. Obviously, the four aristocratic families had already discovered that there was something wrong with the array, and had begun to activate the four square flags to encircle and suppress the Xianyuan water control flag. Puff! Xian glanced at the slightly anxious Xiaohua. Without any hesitation, he spat a mouthful of essence blood onto the Xianyuan water control flag. At this time, the flag didn't reject Xian's essence blood like it did at the beginning. Instead, after Xian's essence blood fell, it immediately produced a blood-colored jade. This jade was 3 times bigger than before. Moreover, this jade's blood-colored light seemed to be able to spread. In a moment, it had already dyed all the jade, and the nearby space was blood-red. Whoosh! Suddenly, a wave of awe-inspiring qi descended upon Xian's body. Xian hurriedly called out, "Darling Xiao." Hearing that Xian didn't call him, "Your Majesty," and instead called him, Xiaohua, Xiaohua's heart was about to be drunk. He turned around and shouted, "Your Majesty, leave quickly." "All right." The Gochen immortal emperor acknowledged. 5 colored radiances flickered around his body, and he transformed into a distorted silhouette as he dashed out of the tunnel. Behind him wasn't Sun Jian or Tai Bai Jinxing. Instead, it was the Dipankara archaic Buddha world exalt. The Dipankara archaic Buddha world exalt nodded at Xian before disappearing in a flash. Ka. After the Dipankara archaic Buddha, it was naturally the golden-winged great rock. He let out a strange cry and blinked his eyes at Xiaohua and Xian before flapping his wings and rushing out of the tunnel. Then, the primordial chaos ancestor, Phoenix Wu, heavenly being, and the others flew over. Xiaohua nodded slightly, and his clones left first. In the end, the primordial chaos ancestor cupped his hands towards Xiaohua helplessly before flying out of the tunnel with the concealed night child and Taoist rider Crane. After these people left, Xiaohua grabbed Xian's waist and said, "Let's go. We'll leave first. There's no need to wait for the formation to be completely broken. Once His Majesty leaves, this earlier Heaven Four-Way Grand Formation will be broken." "All right." Xian agreed obediently. A jade bracelet appeared beneath his feet and carried him and Xiaohua out of the tunnel. As expected, after flying for a few hundred feet, sounds of mountains collapsing and the earth cracking could be heard from outside the jade bracelet. The entire tunnel expanded by dozens of times, and the pressure of the earlier Heaven Four-Way Grand Formation suddenly disappeared. As Xian waved the Xianyuan water control flag, the jade luo near the water slowly disappeared. Under the sunlight, Xiaohua could see clearly that he and Xian were already above Liao River. Currently, due to the earlier Heaven Four-Way Grand Formation being broken, the Liao River's water that had been obstructed for several days gushed down like a flood. As it roared, the paddy fields by the shore were swept into the river. "Damn it!" Seeing this, Xiaohua cursed inwardly. Not daring to delay, he waved his hand and took out the Kunlun mirror. In a flash of light, tens of thousands of Fortune Gate's disciples were released. When these disciples heard the battle cries in front of them, their blood boiled, and they prepared to use their magic power to fight. However, Xiaohua ordered, "Disciples, use your divine abilities to suppress the Liao River's water. Don't let the river water reach the shore." The group of Fortune Gate's disciples looked at each other, but they were only stunned for a moment. Then, they roared, "Yes, disciples understand." Then, each of them flew towards the Liao River, preparing to suppress the flood. Darling Xiao. Seeing Xiaohua giving orders like this, treating the Longevity Town's citizens as more important than anything else, Xian's heart was intoxicated. That thin figure, slender eyebrows, and that unfathomable benevolence, he was far more charming than any all-powerful general or emperor. Admiration flickered in Xian's eyes as she whispered, "This concubine can do this." Without waiting for Xiao Hua to answer, Xian waved the mystic origin water control flag in her hand. Hundreds of jade talismans fell into the Liao River, and the roaring water dragons immediately submitted, obediently flowing along the river. Although the river's water level was much higher than the shore, there was not a trace of water that exceeded the river's flow. "Good," Xiao Hua praised. His hand reached out again, wanting to hold Xian's hand. Xian was originally flying out with Xiao Hua's arm around her waist, but when she saw Xiao Hua take out the Kunlun mirror, she immediately dodged to the side. When she saw Xiao Hua's hand, her figure flickered again, and she winked at Xiao Hua with her left eye. Those quivering eyelashes and the bashfulness in her eyes seemed to tickle Xiao Hua's heart, making him reluctant to reject Xian's pleading. Xiao Hua could only withdraw his hand, and then he ordered the disciples, "All of you, line up and prepare for the battle." "Yes, sect master." The disciples were also the kind of people with sharp eyes. Seeing Xian like this, how could they not know what was going on? They all shouted in unison, "Sect master." These 5 words were truly earth-shattering. Although Xian did not know why Xiao Hua was called sect master, seeing Xiao Hua being so revered by the disciples, she was also happy. The corners of her mouth curved up, and it was like the mellow fragrance of sweet wine. Xiao Hua glared at these disciples, and then released his divine sense to look around. He saw that the current longevity town was no longer the longevity town before the extreme bliss scripture-seeking bliss. Thousands of miles above longevity town, millions of disciples from aristocratic families had formed a battle team. This battle team was very similar to the 4 aristocratic families' disciples Xiao Hua saw in front of Chaomu Cliff, but it was also different. The strength of these disciples was clearly a level higher than the 900,000 disciples. Moreover, these 1 million disciples were divided into 2 layers. 30% of the disciples were in the inner layer, guarding the 4 directions, facing longevity town, and surrounding it like an iron bucket. Above these aristocratic family disciples, Dongfang Qianghao, Shimen Jianzhong, Nangong Tianji, and Baiming Chu Qing's faces were heavy with helplessness and unwillingness. They each held a small flag in their hands, and the flags were covered in clouds, protecting 30% of the disciples. And outside of these disciples were another 70% of the disciples. These disciples wore heavy armor and were facing the outside. Their killing intent and majestic auras were like dragons, cruising around the edges of the battle squad. Boom! 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 Just as Xiao Hua was looking around, in the sky to the left of the longevity town, there was a loud rumbling sound. Countless pillars of vast qi crashed into the town, and the sky was already wide open. Groups of immortal soldiers and immortal generals raised their banners high, stepping on the earth, fire, wind, and thunder as they descended. They even sealed off the 10,000 li radius around the longevity town. The sounds of battle and the rosy clouds had already blocked the sunlight that filled the sky. The piece of the Sutra of Bliss had already been torn to pieces. Under the mask of mercy, a bloody ferocity was revealed. Dongfang Qianghao. Immortal Emperor Go Chen was facing Dongfang Qianghao. He was 1,000 zhang tall now, and his sun and moon imperial robes were majestic. Lightning flashed as he spoke. His voice was like the punishment of the heavens. I have always treated the 4 clans well. I even wanted to betroth my beloved princess to you 4 princes. I didn't expect you to have such evil intentions, setting up such an ambush in Longevity Town. If it wasn't for the heavens protecting me, I would have fallen into your trap. Gaochen. Dongfang Qianghao smiled coldly and said, "The winner is the king, the loser is the bandit. Since you're lucky that my innate 4 cardinal formation can't trap you, there's no need to waste time. Let's fight. Let's fight and see who wins." I am the son of the heavens, the ruler of the immortal palace. I have the fortune of the world on me, so how can you covet it? Immortal Emperor Go Chen laughed and pointed around. You've been surrounded by my solar temple, lunar temple, heavenly king temple, and light temple. How can you survive? If you abandon your weapons and surrender, you may still have a way out. If you stubbornly resist to the end, only death awaits you. Old Go Chen. Dongfang Qianghao was not moved at all. He said coldly, history is always written by the victors. Fortune is always the reward of the victors. If you didn't steal the power of the immortal palace, how could you have the fortune of fortune on you? Don't worry. Once I kill you in the Longevity Town, it will be renamed as the Bandit Town, and the luck of Confucian cultivators will return to me. Wishful thinking. Immortal Emperor Go Chen sneered and took out his Son of Heaven's sword. Since you don't know how to repent and cherish the chance I gave you, then let the wrath of the heavens descend and punish your rebellious path. Immortal Emperor Go Chen looked at Wen Chu in the distance and ordered, Wen Chu Palace Master, can you help me kill these traitors? Wen Chu's body flashed and landed on the other side of Dongfang Qianghao. His voice was like thunder. How can I not obey your Majesty's orders? Everyone has the right to kill these traitors. Give it a tip, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4650. With that, Wen Chu raised his hand and the heaven and earth pagoda flew out. The pagoda emitted a thunderous roar and enveloped the area within 100 miles of Dongfang Qianghao. Its unstoppable force slammed down towards Dongfang Qianghao. Dongfang Qianghao wasn't afraid at all despite the pagoda's boundless aura. He sneered, you don't know what kind of treasure you're facing. With that, Dongfang Qianghao waved his hand and the small flag in his hand began to move. Wen Chu understood that this flag was a triangular flag. The entire flag was apricot yellow, and there were 5 golden lotuses embroidered on the flag. Between the 5 jade talismans, there were faint cloud patterns. The edges of the flag were embroidered with clouds, suns, and moons. When the flag was waved, the clouds floated and the sun and moon shone brightly. Moreover, the flag didn't summon any worldly energy or righteous aura. There wasn't even any energy fluctuation. However, as he waved it, the small flag shone with an apricot yellow light. Every time the light flashed, many golden lotuses would appear and slowly float in the air. Strange runic symbols flowed on the apricot yellow light. These runic symbols were golden and silver in color, and they looked like tadpoles or inscriptions. The lotuses rushed to the sky and landed below the pagoda. The pagoda rumbled several times but couldn't descend. It was stopped by Dongfang Qianghao's apricot yellow flag. There wasn't the slightest trace of smoke and dust. In the name of the Son of Heaven, I summon the might of the heaven and earth, summon the arts of immortal Confucianism, and punish the traitors. Immortal Emperor Go Chen sneered and took out his sword while chanting. As the emperor's words echoed in the air, the entire space trembled. Waves of earth-shattering ripples came down along with layers of heavenly punishment. The lightning was like fire, burning the sky red. Immortal Emperor Go Chen had already brought down his sword. The heavenly punishment and the wrath of the immortal palaces not only fell on Dongfang Qianghao but also the hundreds of thousands of Dongfang clan disciples. The west side of Longevity Town was where the Shimen family was guarding. Shimen Jinzhong held a triangular ball of light in his hand. The white cloud-bound flag did not reveal its true appearance. Beneath him, there were also hundreds of thousands of disciples from aristocratic families, close to 1 million. They were about to clash with Lunar Temple's troops. Shimen Jinzhong didn't command the battle formation. He narrowed his eyes and looked forward. In front of him, the golden-winged Peng and Feng Wu had surrounded him. Not to mention the fact that Feng Wu wanted to kill Shimen Jinzhong, even the golden-winged Peng was furious. As it flapped its wings, hundreds of pillars of light descended from the sky and fell into the star marks on its body. Then, a starlight phantom several thousand feet in size appeared near the golden-winged Peng's body. The space within this phantom completely collapsed and a destructive aura filled the air. The Phoenix Wu didn't dare to be careless and also moved her monster body. Boom, boom, boom. The power of the stars and moon poured down like a river of stars. As countless star patterns flashed around the Phoenix Wu's body, a starlight phantom that was less than 10,000 feet tall but seemed to be solid and transparent appeared. The brilliance at the edge of this phantom was distorted, and if one's gaze fell upon it, they would immediately sink. The Phoenix Wu let out a clear cry and activated her monster body and phantom at the same time as the golden-winged rock. Her 4 sharp claws were suffused with a power that could destroy heaven and earth as she pounced toward Shimen Jianzhong. Shimen Jianzhong sneered. He waved the ball of light in his hand. The ball of light scattered, revealing a triangular cloud-bound flag. The flag was white, and there were 5 clouds embroidered on the flag. The 5 clouds were different, and there were some cloud-like patterns in between. At the edge of the white cloud-bound flag, there was no special shape, only some twisted cloud patterns. At this moment, when Shimen Jianzhong waved the white cloud-bound flag, the entire small flag emitted a white brilliance. At the bottom of the brilliance, strange runes flowed. These runes were the same as the other flags, they were golden and silver in color. They were shaped like tadpoles and were shaped like inscriptions. Moreover, under the brilliance, there was a lot of dense clouds. These clouds seemed to slowly float in the air, but in a moment, they protected Shimen Jianzhong and some of the disciples of the Shimen family, welcoming the terrifying attacks of the golden-winged rock and Feng Wu. The south of the Longevity Town was naturally where the Nangong clan was guarding. Nangong Tianji's face was filled with shock as he faced the celestial being and the lightning enlightened being. He really didn't expect immortal Emperor Gaochen and the others to be able to escape from the innate 4 directions grand formation. In order to set up this innate 4 directions grand formation without attracting the attention of the immortal palace, avoiding the earth, the heaven and earth gate, and the thunder sound temple's Arhat, the 4 great clans spent a lot of effort. In order to dispel immortal Emperor Gaochen's doubts, the 4 great clans even used the conflict between the Nangong clan and Xiaohua to set up a trap. They were prepared to use the 900,000 disciples and the Nangong clan's reputation as the price to lure immortal Emperor Gaochen. Whether it was the reputation or the 900,000 disciples, these were the limits of the 4 great clans. Their goal was to trap immortal Emperor Gaochen in the Longevity Town so that they could attack the immortal palace and obtain the golden throne. Fortunately, Xiaohua was merciful. He took the Nangong clan's reputation and released the 500,000 disciples back to the 4 great clans. Dongfang Qianghao secretly laughed at Xiaohua's soft-heartedness and comforted Nangong Tianji, saying that they would use the blood of the Fortune Gate's disciples to wash away the humiliation of the Nangong clan. However, the Nangong clan was clear that once the 4 great clans took over the immortal palace, the first thing they would do would be to appease and recruit the Fortune Gate. There was no way they would start a war. The Nangong clan would definitely be tied to the Pillar of Humiliation. The humiliation of the Nangong clan would probably only be forgotten after thousands of years. Therefore, when he saw the celestial being and the lightning enlightened being attacking together, Nangong Tianji's eyes turned red. He didn't wait for the 2 of them to make a move and immediately waved the triangular ball of light in his hand. As the ball of light scattered, a triangular floating flame flag was revealed. This flag had 5 different colors, and there were 5 flames embroidered on the flag. Not only did each flame have a different color and shape, but they also divided the flag into 5 regions. These 5 regions intertwined with each other, and it looked like the chaotic space of the 5 elements. The 5 flaming swords also had some interconnected threads of fire. Strange runes were flashing on the swords. As Nangong Tianji waved the swords, the runes turned into tadpoles and swam on the flag. Layers of flame-shaped clouds rushed out rapidly and protected the disciples of the Nangong family and Nangong Tianji. Motherfucker. The Celestial cursed as the clouds flew out. The layers of defenses were stronger than anything in the world, and the Celestial raised his hand to summon the Deva's white bone. Rumbling sounds could be heard as the surrounding space began to collapse, and the magical laws of heaven and earth began to arrive. Seeing the faint golden light around the celestial being's body, and the laws of heaven and earth disappeared the moment they entered the golden light, the lightning enlightened being laughed and said, "Congratulations, fellow cultivator. If I'm not wrong, you will be able to refine the celestial being's white bone into your body today." Roar. The celestial being roared towards the sky. Golden light shone from his body, and 3 heads and 6 arms slowly grew out. The 3 mouths shouted at the same time, "Whether or not I can succeed will depend on whether the celestial being floating flame flag of that old bastard Nangong can withstand my attack." After he finished speaking, the celestial being didn't hesitate. He waved his hands and feet and rushed towards the flaming clouds of the floating flame flag. Puff puff puff. A series of muffled sounds came as the celestial being activated his cultivation technique. While refining the celestial being's white bone, he attacked Nangong Tianji at the same time. The celestial being's body flashed with golden light, and when the golden light landed on the cloud, it was as immortal Emperor Go Chen had said. All evil was repelled, and all the golden light hit the surface of the celestial being's body. Waves of strange fluctuations came from the places where the golden light landed, and they rushed into the celestial being's body and penetrated his bones. Seeing the celestial being in such a state, the Thunderbolt Hermit kept the Thunderbolt sword that he had already activated and stood at the side with his hands behind his back to support the celestial being. However, the Thunderbolt Hermit also released his divine sense and scanned the surroundings. The primordial chaos ancestor, the concealed night child, and the riding crane hermit, who had flown out earlier, were nowhere to be seen. They must have left this troublesome place as soon as they escaped. The north of the Longevity Town was naturally where the Dark North family was guarding. However, the Dipankara archaic Buddha, who had rushed out together with immortal Emperor Go Chen, wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the 9 grades lotus platform and glared at Dark North Kuo Qing, who was holding the triangular flag. The Buddhism sect was naturally merciful, but it didn't mean that they didn't have the means to subdue devils. Back then, in the profound water palace, Gu Zhen even used his protective means and overestimated himself, trying to shake the profound essence water control flag. Facing the green lotus flag today, the Dipankara archaic Buddha's world lord was truly enraged. However, he chanted, "Namo Amitabha, my Buddha is merciful. Please forgive your disciples' anger today." As he spoke, the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord raised his right palm, which expanded to a size of several miles. That Buddha palm was no longer a Buddha palm. Instead, it resembled a huge mountain, a deep pool, or countless Buddha kingdoms. Boundless power of faith fell within this Buddha palm. Under this Buddha palm, the power of mountains, stars, and samsara, which were commonly seen in Buddhism sects' Buddha seals, were continuously produced. Following the changes of this force, the space above the northern Nether family's head started collapsing, and being annihilated. Buddha lights, blood lights, and even faint cries of wandering souls could be heard. Dark North Kuo Qing's expression changed drastically. However, she forced herself to remain calm and waved the green lotus flag in her hand. This green lotus flag was different from the other 5 elements flags. A layer of treasured radiance covered the flag, and within the radiance, strange runes flickered. At first glance, this treasured radiance resembled the Maitreya Buddha's 7 Wonders tree. Give it a recommendation vote, collect it, or tip it. Thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 46-51. However, there were 3 green lotuses embroidered on the flag gate. The lotuses were of different sizes and were arranged in a triangular formation. Each of the lotuses had clouds coming out from them. These clouds intertwined on the flag and formed circles as thin as mosquitoes. Currently, as the green lotus flag was being waved, countless rays of light shot out from the circular surface of the flag, forming the shapes of sariras of various sizes in mid-air. These sariras emitted a kind of extreme gentleness. As they shot into the air, they welcomed the Dipankara archaic Buddha's Buddha palm. Kill. As the group of Supreme Being experts made their moves, the immortal soldiers and immortal generals naturally received the orders from their generals. They activated the clouds and pounced on the battle teams of the disciples of the 4 great clans with weapons in hand. For a moment, the battle cries rang out again. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen was fooled by the 4 clans and came to longevity from his palace. However, he was still fully prepared and hid his troops in the fire, earth, wind, and lightning above the town in case of an emergency. Unfortunately, Immortal Emperor Go-Chen still underestimated the 4 clans. The moment the Xiantian 4 Corners Grand Formation appeared, it immediately cut off all information. If it wasn't for the new Mystic Water Control flag, then the 4 clans would have succeeded. Once Immortal Emperor Go-Chen escaped, the first thing he did was to issue a decree and order the 10 halls to surround and annihilate the disciples of the 4 great clans. Of course, the 4 great clans were not unprepared. The 70% of the disciples outside the Grand Formation were prepared to meet the 10 halls troops. In the time it took to finish a cup of tea, tens of thousands of disciples and immortal soldiers had already perished. Their flesh and blood began to scatter all over the sacred ground of the Buddhist sect. As for Immortal Emperor Gaochen, the Son of Heaven's sword carried the heavenly punishment and slammed into the 10,000 golden lotuses of the apricot yellow flag. The lotuses were destroyed by the heavenly punishment, but they were born again. Even with the suppression of Wen Chu's worldly pagoda, the Son of Heaven's sword couldn't reach Dongfang Qionghao's eyes. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen and Wen Chu didn't succeed, but the Peng and the Phoenix Parasol didn't fare any better. The 4 claws of the 2 grand saints were extremely powerful at this moment. Even if there was a mountain here, it would still be torn to pieces. However, when such a powerful attack landed in the clouds, it destroyed most of them. But in the next moment, more clouds surged out and dragged the 2 great saints' bodies out of the clouds. He didn't let them get close at all. As for the Dipankara archaic Buddha's Buddha palm, as soon as it landed, the Sarira lights were annihilated. However, as the lights were annihilated, another layer of lights appeared. These layers of lights overlapped each other and blocked the Buddha palm's attack. Upon seeing this, be it the Immortal Emperor Go-Chen, the Dipankara archaic Buddha, or even the golden-winged Great Rock, their expressions changed drastically. After all, as long as the 4 great clans had the 4 cardinal flags, they would be in an invincible position. This battle would probably not have any results. They all looked at the new princess who was standing with Xiao Hua in the distance. His gaze fell on the Xianyuan water control flag in her hand. Feng Wu, Daoist Thunderclap, and Wen Chu's expressions didn't change at all. They knew clearly in their hearts that even though the 4 great clans had the innate 4-directional flags, the flags could only be used for defense. In other words, they were invulnerable to all evil, and invulnerable to all techniques. Xiao Hua's Devil Saber Massacre was the nemesis of these 4 cardinal flags. As for the heavenly being, he was happily activating his abilities and rushing into the flaming clouds. He was extremely busy. Xian. The Immortal Emperor Go-Chen said, "Listen to my command. Help me destroy this yin-yang apricot yellow flag." "Yes, Your Majesty." Xian naturally couldn't disobey the orders of the Celestial Emperor, so he respectfully responded. He secretly glanced at Xiao Hua before urging his body to fly out. When Dongfang Qionghao saw this, his face turned even paler. He seemed to have already seen the 4 great clans bleeding all over the ground and being annihilated. Boom, boom, boom. It was also at this moment that a thunderous sound came from the sky. It was like a torrential rain, and it was like 10,000 horses were mute. This sound covered the sky and passed through the sky. The floating clouds in the sky were more or less shattered. Layers of chaotic fluctuations fell down as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. In an instant, the sun and moon lost their light, and the stars dimmed. What's going on? All of the Supreme Being experts were dumbfounded. As the fluctuations descended, waves of fear and trepidation inexplicably arose in their hearts. A faint scent of blood and destruction drifted around their mouths and noses. However, this phenomenon disappeared in a flash. Before they could think about it, the sky above them shone brightly once again. Not only did the ripples disappear, even the sound disappeared. Everything was like the deafening battle cries. There was no change at all. That strange phenomenon was like a dream in an instant. Oh no! How could Xiaofan not understand what had happened? He didn't hesitate at all. He didn't dare to conceal his cultivation anymore. He raised his hand and slapped his forehead. The immortal Emperor Gochen also pointed at his forehead. Golden light overflowed from his eyes, and waves of strange fluctuations slowly appeared in front of his eyes. As for the Dipankara archaic Buddha, the World Lord retracted his Buddha palm. Shadows appeared in his ears, and countless radiances appeared behind his head and fell into the shadows of his ears. Boom! Just when the Supreme Being experts were about to execute their abilities to calculate the karma, another massive chi pillar emerged from the earth, fire, wind, and lightning. A patrol inspector clad in bright armor descended from the sky. His figure was still distorted, and before he could solidify, a panicked voice resounded, Your Majesty, the Heaven's Secret Hall's G Prefecture has an urgent report. Before the inspector's voice could land, Kachacha, a thunderous rumble could be heard. From the direction of the soaring Dragon Mountain Range, a Fortune Gate disciple with a cultivation of grade 8 origin energy was flying over. That disciple's face was filled with panic as he hurriedly said, reporting to the Patriarch, There is an urgent report from the Star-Picking Tower. Boom! Similarly, from the Thunder Monastery's direction, a pillar of Buddha light pierced through the sky. A long-eared arhat clad in a monk's robe hurriedly descended while stepping on a 6th-grade Buddha lotus. That arhat's eyes were filled with disbelief. He didn't have the calmness of an ordinary Buddha as he said, Dipankara archaic Buddha, the World Lord, Heavenly King Polylore has sent an urgent report from the southern part of the Blessed Land world. Speak. Immortal Emperor Gochen hurriedly stopped his divine ability and retreated. Reporting. Without waiting for the patrol inspector to speak, the starry sky to the north of the Longevity Town was already in chaos. Streams of stars fell from the sky, and after they fell to the ground, a celestial bridge pierced through them and rushed over from afar. Amidst the starlight, a faint hall could be seen on the other side of the celestial bridge. The Great Sage Hall's celestial bridge sent a message. The golden-winged great rock didn't have any divine ability of karma, nor did he have the ability to predict the future. He only knew that something earth-shattering must have happened in the 3 continents. Now that he saw the Great Sage Hall using the celestial bridge to send a message, his expression changed greatly. He exclaimed, Could it be that something strange has happened in my 1,000 demons' sacred territory? Sage Peng. No demons appeared where the star bridge landed. Instead, a dignified voice sounded. It was the 3rd great sage of the Great Sage Temple, the mystic armored Pentaceratops. Strange insects have appeared in the extreme north of our 1,000 demons' sacred realm. There are countless of them, and they devoured several demon realms in a single day. Not only did the demons in the demon realms vanish into nothingness, even the mountains and lakes of the demon realms have disappeared without a trace. It is exactly the same as the Qijing, Yuanfeng, and Bingqin demon realms from before. Countless? The golden-winged great rock was dumbfounded. Not only that. The Pentaceratops continued, the same insects have appeared in the west of the West Sea. They have devoured hundreds of thousands of sea demons and thousands of dragons. The Dragon King of the West Sea, Ao Hong, happened to be patrolling the eye of the West Sea and was besieged by the insects. It is unknown whether he is still alive or not. Sacred Rock, we have gathered at the Great Sage Hall. You and Sacred Phoenix should return quickly so that we can discuss how to eliminate these insects. West Sea Dragon King Ao Hong is still alive. Let alone the golden-winged Great Rock, even immortal Emperor Go Chen, the Dipankara archaic Buddha, and Xiao Hua were stunned. The Dragon King of the West Sea, Ao Hong, was a Dragon King of the 9th grade Essence Qi realm. Although he had yet to reach the peak of the 9th grade Essence Qi realm, he shouldn't have been besieged by these insects, right? Strange insects. Xiao Hua suddenly came to an understanding, and his gaze passed through everyone to look at Sun Jian. Sure enough, Sun Jian's expression changed drastically as well, and he just happened to be looking at Xiao Hua. As their gazes met, a strand of indescribable terror arose in their eyes at the same time. None of the people present knew how powerful the strange insects they had encountered in the void were. If they encountered those strange insects, then the 3 continents would be doomed. After all, even the dragon race and the dragon temple were no match for those strange insects. After the profound armored Pentaceratops finished speaking, the starry bridge disappeared, and the inverted starry river returned to its original state. Your Majesty. The Immortal Palace's inspector stole a glance at Immortal Emperor Go Chen, who had also turned pale, and reported, urgent report from the Heavenly Mysteries Hall. Strange insects have appeared at the border of the hidden immortal continent in the east of the Ji province. These insects are innumerable. They are like locusts, leaving no survivors behind. Now, they have caused the annihilation of 10 countries. Millions of living beings have died. 10 7th-grade Essence Qi realm disciples of the Heavenly Mysteries Hall have perished, and 400,000 immortal soldiers guarding the border of the continent have gone missing. Long-eared Arhat. Shock appeared on the Dipankara archaic Buddha's face as he looked at the Arhat who had sent the report. Reporting to the World Lord. Long-eared Arhat hurriedly replied, Heavenly King Polylore has sent an urgent report from the southern part of the Blessed Land world. Strange insects have appeared at the border of the Blessed Land world. These insects are of different sizes. The small ones are less than a few inches, while the big ones are more than a few dozen feet. These insects devour everything, and they especially like things that contain the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Some insects even devour Buddhist lights. Before the report was sent, more than 40 temples and 60,000 Buddhas had gone missing. Among them, 7 Arhats and 14 Vajras had gone missing. Chapter 46-52. Hearing this, Xiao Hua couldn't help asking, how many people have gone missing? That long-eared Arhat originally had other numbers to say, but when he heard Xiao Hua's question, he took a deep breath and lamented, 40 temples. About 4,670,000 benefactors have disappeared. So many. Xiao Hua's heart ached, then he looked at his disciple and asked, do you have more bad news? That Fortune Gate disciple took a deep breath and said loudly, other than the above, Zhai Xing Lu has other news. On the hidden immortal mainland, strange insects have appeared in Qing province and Yangzhou, killing nearly 700,000 people in 4 towns. On the White Bone Mountain range in the western part of the Western Paradise, 400,000 people have gone missing, and the mountain range has been swallowed. If I'm not mistaken, it is also the doing of strange insects. On the eastern part of the Thousand Demons sacred territory, 800,000 demonic beast tribes have gone missing near the Chitty River, including 307 greater demonic beasts. On the eastern part of the Eastern Sea, 310,000 sea tribes have been killed by strange insects. Anything else? Xiaohua gritted his teeth. Yes. That disciple flipped his hand and took out a jade eye. He passed it to Xiaohua and said, Zhai Xing Lu has lost more than a dozen disciples and sent back images of strange insects. Xiaohua lifted his hand and made a grabbing motion. The jade eye instantly fell into his hand. Xiaohua flipped his hand and placed it on his forehead, but at that moment, he hesitated for a moment. He closed his eyes slightly, calmed his mind, and put it down. As Xiaohua had expected, there were more than a dozen images of strange insects in the jade eye. Some were big, some were small, and two of them were exactly the same as the ones he had seen in the void on the Dragon Island. Among these dozen strange insects, there were 3 that were bigger than the strange insects he had seen on the Dragon Island. Similarly, there were 7 or 8 strange insects that were smaller than the strange insects Xiaohua had seen in the void. Moreover, the smallest strange insect, Xiaohua, seemed to be slightly familiar. He pondered for a moment before coming to a realization. Wasn't it the myriad of black dots he saw in the spatial rift when he fell into the Western Sea all those years ago? At that time, the black dots were completely black, but he could still remember the shape of the black dots. Wasn't it similar to the smallest strange insect? Moreover, the black dots wriggled like maggots, and the black dots attacked like soul spikes. Xiaohua's memories were still fresh in his mind. Even Xiaohua, who had an innate divine restriction outside his Naiwan palace that was impossible for ordinary people, was knocked unconscious by this strange insect's soul-piercing attack. Then, what about the other cultivators? If it were any other cultivator, even if they had reached the tribulation passing stage, without a special spirit treasure or even a heaven spirit treasure, they wouldn't be able to escape death. Xiaohua's heart couldn't help but clench at the thought of the hundreds of millions of strange insect shadows. He took the jade eye ring off his forehead and looked at the disciples of the 4 great clans who had stopped fighting, as well as the immortal soldiers and immortal generals of the 10 halls of the immortal palaces. With sorrow in his eyes, he threw the jade eye ring to Sun Jian. Seeing the jade pupil slowly flying in the air, it didn't fall into immortal Emperor Go Chen's hand, but it fell into Sun Jian's. Others didn't understand, but Sun Jian's heart felt as if it had fallen into an ice cellar. After receiving the jade eye ring, light flashed in Sun Jian's eyes. After looking at it for a moment, his face turned pale, and he respectfully passed it to immortal Emperor Go Chen. After immortal Emperor Go Chen looked at it, he passed it to Taibai Jinxing. Taibai Jinxing didn't take a look at it, and instead, he passed it to Namo Great Wisdom Manjushri, who then passed it to Namo Dipankara Archaic Buddha. After all the supreme experts present finished looking at it, the jade eye ring returned to Xiaohua's hand. Xiaohua looked at the jade eye ring with a heavy gaze, and just as he was about to keep it, immortal Emperor Go Chen shouted from afar, Xin Xin, come and help me break this Wuji apricot yellow flag. Disciples of the immortal palaces, listen to my command, kill. Damn it! Xiaohua was enraged. He pointed his finger, and a thunderbolt descended from the sky, striking towards immortal Emperor Go Chen. Of course, this thunderbolt was only a warning. Immortal Emperor Go Chen wielded the Sun-Moon Emperor armor to shatter this thunderbolt. Master Xiao Lei, are you going to offend your superior? Immortal Emperor Go Chen lost his face, and he couldn't help but feel angry. Your Majesty. Xiaohua looked at the 10 immortal palaces of the immortal palaces, and suppressed the anger in his heart. Don't you see? The extraterrestrial enemies have already invaded the 3 continents and the 4 seas. If we don't work together to defend against them, I'm afraid the 3 continents and 4 seas will be destroyed. Humph, destroy the world. How is that possible? Immortal Emperor Go Chen sneered, since the ancient times, our 3 continents have existed for who knows how long, and who knows how many extraterrestrial dangers we've encountered. I also never knew that the extraterrestrial enemies had the ability to destroy the world. Are the cultivators of our 3 continents made of mud? Immortal Emperor Go Chen looked at Dongfang Qianghao, and said, to resist the foreign invasion, we must first settle our internal affairs. Even if I want to defend against the foreign invasion, I must first eliminate the 4 great clans. Otherwise, how can I be at ease killing those strange insects? Princess Xin hurriedly said, reporting to your majesty, although I have already controlled the mystic water control flag, the innate 5-element flags are only good at defense, and cannot be used to attack. Moreover, I'm only at the lower 7th grade of origin energy. Even if I use the mystic water control flag, I can't break through the yin-yang apricot yellow flag, which is controlled by a 9th grade origin energy cultivator. Your Majesty, please understand. No matter. Immortal Emperor Go Chen laughed, as long as you can control the yin-yang apricot yellow flag's defense. Unfortunately, before Immortal Emperor Go Chen finished speaking, Xiaohua also laughed loudly and said, no matter, Xin, go and help His Majesty. Let them fight to the death. This Xiao will send a message to the soaring Dragon Mountain Range, and my Fortune Gate's disciples will all go out to battle. Rather than dying in the mouths of those strange insects, why not exterminate the 4 great clans and the Immortal Palace, and this Xiao will be free in the Cloud Ascension Palace for a few days. Amitabha. The Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha chanted the Buddha's name and gave up on Baiming Cho Ching. He raised his hands and formed a Buddha seal with his palms. As the Buddha seal flickered, the radiance behind the Dipankara archaic Buddha's head shone brightly. Layers of Buddha radiance condensed into a stream and fell into the Buddha seal. Gradually, the space around the Buddha seal started distorting and collapsing strangely. Then, strings of golden tattoos gushed out like tadpoles. These golden tattoos transformed into a huge swastika character and slowly rotated in mid-air. Waves of cryptic fluctuations were emitted from the swastika character and rushed into the surrounding void. Seeing the Dipankara archaic Buddha's actions, Immortal Emperor Go Chen hesitated for a moment. Then, he raised his hand and took out the clear heavenly mirror. He opened his mouth, and a dragon-like Confucian fate entered the clear heavenly mirror. The entire clear heavenly mirror let out a rumbling sound and transformed into a huge door of light. Appear. Immortal Emperor Go Chen raised his hand again and slapped the crown on his head. Woo! Amidst the flickering lights, the impure 5-colored true qi rushed into the door of light like a pillar. Then, the entire door of light shone with multicolored radiance. Strange fluctuations were emitted from the void and rushed into the radiance with a roar. Then, scenes of light appeared within the radiance. Xiaohua knew that the 2 supreme experts were using their abilities to divine the future. He also raised his hand and was about to release the Thunder Nebula. However, his heart skipped a beat, and he stopped. Looking at the trembling void and the intertwining fluctuations, he sighed, sigh. Then, he looked up at the sky again. The phenomenon just now wasn't created out of nothing. If there wasn't any danger of world destruction, why would there be such omens? As expected, after a while, the radiance within the clear heavenly mirror gradually faded, turning into black and white. The swastika symbol in front of the Dipankara archaic Buddha's eyes also slowly withered, turning into grayish-white. Immortal Emperor Go Chen's appearance was hidden behind the golden radiance of the crown, and no one could see it. However, the despair on the Dipankara archaic Buddha's face was obvious. Amitabha, for great families. The Dipankara archaic Buddha's Buddha lotus beneath the Dipankara archaic Buddha's feet was already emitting Buddha radiances. He then said, the unprecedented calamity of our 3 continents is approaching. No matter if it's the human race, the demon race, or the dragon race, all living in the 3 continents must work together to resist the enemies outside. Today's matter. My Buddhism sect won't pursue it any further. When you return, think about it carefully. Do you want to live in internal strife, or die in the hands of the strange insects outside? Amitba. Namo Daji, Manjushri, and the other Buddhas clasped their palms together and chanted Buddha's name. Following the Dipankara archaic Buddha's world exalt, they flew into the sky and disappeared in an instant. Caw. The golden-winged great rock also let out a cry. He flapped his wings and flew into the sky, shouting, "Old man Shiman, consider yourself lucky today. Before the calamity, I won't lower myself to your level. If you can fight against the enemies outside with the help of the human race, I'll treat it as if nothing happened. Otherwise. Don't blame me for luring my 1,000 demons' sacred territories children into the 4 great families." After saying that, the golden-winged great rock flew into the sky. Feng Wu also nodded towards Xiaohua and followed after him. Seeing Feng Wu leaving, Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly sent a voice transmission, "Phoenix Sage, don't we have a teleportation formation under the Black Wind Ridge? Use the teleportation formation to return with the Rock Sage." "All right." Feng Wu replied, "Since you've taken out our Fortune Gate's teleportation formation, I'm afraid the Rock Sage will treat you as his brother in the future." Then, Feng Wu and the golden-winged great rock's figures tilted and landed on the Black Wind Ridge. "Your Majesty." Seeing that the demonic beast race and the Buddhist sect had left, Dongfang Qianghao hurriedly said, "This old subject was foolish and blinded by greed. I actually wanted to scheme against your Majesty." Dongfang Qianghao's expression changed like flipping through a book. Xiaohua was also dumbfounded. He listened in a daze for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Dongfang Qianghao's endless confession was like a gem, and every word was brilliant. If he wrote it, it would be even more wonderful than the 4 great clans' declaration of collusion. In the end, Dongfang Qianghao said, "Therefore, this old subject is willing to lead the disciples of the 4 great families and be your Majesty's vanguard. We will kill the strange insects, destroy the enemies outside, and return peace to the 3 continents." After saying that, Dongfang Qianghao knelt in the air and bowed his head to beg for forgiveness. Give it a tip, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-53. Dongfang Qianghao, Shimen Jianzhong, Nangong Tian, Baiming Chui Qing, and the millions of disciples from the 4 aristocratic families did the same. Immortal Emperor Gaochen looked at the 4 aristocratic families that were still hidden by the innate 4 cardinal flags and hesitated for a moment. Then, he waved his hand and revealed the Emperor's sword and supreme heavenly mirror. He laughed and said, "Dongfang, Shimen, Nangong, and Baiming, please rise." The saint once said, "How can a man be infallible? A man who corrects his mistakes is a gentleman." The 4 aristocratic families haven't been to the Immortal Palace for a long time, and I haven't been to the hidden Immortal Palace for a long time. Therefore, it's not strange for there to be a gap between us. From now on, I will visit the 4 aristocratic families, and you will also visit the Immortal Palace. I'm sure we won't have any more grudges between us. Especially now that the calamity of the 3 continents is coming, you and I are the commanders of the human race. Even if we die fighting the enemies from the outside, we can't cause trouble here. Thank you, Your Majesty. Dongfang Qianghao and the other 3 aristocratic families all stood up. Immortal Emperor Gaochen saw this and didn't stay for long. He raised his hand and said, "Immortal soldiers of the 10 palaces of the Immortal Palace, march to the Lingyun Side Palace. I will live and die with the hidden Immortal Continent." Yes. The immortal soldiers and generals obeyed. They activated their clouds and set off. Dongfang Qianghao waved his hand and put away the Wuji apricot yellow flag when he saw that 30% of the soldiers had left. He ordered, "Soldiers, retreat." With Dongfang Qianghao's order, the Dongfang aristocratic family's troops readied themselves and cleaned up the mess. Shimen Jianzhong, Nangong Tian, and Baiming Chui Qing also put away the 5-element flags and prepared to retreat. Dongfang Qianghao glanced at Immortal Emperor Gaochen and bowed. Your Majesty, I'll return to the faction first and wait for your orders. Good. Immortal Emperor Gaochen helped Dongfang Qianghao up and said with a smile, let's forget about our grudges today. I hope we can work together to eliminate the enemies from the outside. Under your Majesty's wise leadership, the strange insects from the outside are nothing. Dongfang Qianghao said seriously. Good, thank you for your auspicious words. Immortal Emperor Gaochen flew up and smiled, may my Confucian Legion succeed. Your Majesty. Seeing that Immortal Emperor Gaochen was about to leave, Xin also moved. Xiaofan hurriedly shouted, don't forget what you said at the southern heaven gate. Immortal Emperor Gaochen stopped in mid-air and pondered for a moment before nodding, all right. Since Master Xiaolei has rescued Xin, I will agree to your marriage proposal. However, now that the calamity is upon us, we don't have the time to play matchmaker for you. Let's talk about this after we kill the strange insect. Moreover, if you want to marry the princess of the Immortal Palace, my most beloved daughter, if you can't take out a fortune worthy of my Xin, don't even think about stealing Xin away. Hearing Immortal Emperor Gaochen mention her marriage in front of so many people, Princess Xin shyly lowered her head and hid in front of her chest. Xiaofan was overjoyed when he heard this. Just as he was about to thank Immortal Emperor Gaochen, he rolled his eyes and pushed the boat with the current. Your Majesty, if that's the case, why don't we strike while the iron is hot? This humble servant will take out a gift worthy of the 9th princess. You only need to say one word, and this humble servant is willing to contribute to the eradication of the insects in the 9 regions. Oh! Immortal Emperor Gaochen was stunned. He smiled and said, so Master Xiaolei already had a plan? I just don't know what kind of gift you have prepared. It's actually worthy of the princess of the Immortal Palace? The patriarchs of the 4 great clans are here. Xiaofan smiled and said, let them be witnesses and see if this gift of mine is suitable. Boom! While speaking, Xiaofan opened his mouth and the 9 regions cauldrons flew out. The 9 regions cauldrons landed in mid-air. Boom, boom, boom. Another 9 layers of vast energy pillars fell down. Under the 9 regions cauldrons, 9 layers of fate energy swarmed out and turned into 9 dragons that danced around the cauldrons. 9 regions cauldrons. Not only was Immortal Emperor Gaochen surprised, but Dongfang Qianghao and the others also turned pale with fright. They hurriedly said, this. How did the 9 regions cauldrons end up in your hands? Don't worry, Your Majesty. Xiaofan smiled and said, this Xiao is not a thief who stole the cauldrons. Your Majesty, please listen to this Xiao in detail. Then, Xiaofan told the story of how he met the demon refining gourd at the Jade Pavilion conference and how he killed Kong Hongwu. Finally, he said, this Xiao obtained 5 9 regions cauldrons from Kong Hongwu's Cosmos bag. Then, this Xiao found out that Kong Hongwu was a secret agent of the Heaven's Secret Hall through Star Plucking Pavilion. That's why I suspected the Hall Master of the Heaven's Secret Hall, Xin. Then, Your Majesty personally killed Xin. Damn it, damn it. Immortal Emperor Gaochen finally understood. Dongfang Qianghao and the others also suddenly understood. Xin really deserves to die 10,000 times. Immortal Emperor Gaochen said fiercely, for his own selfish desires, he actually disregarded the fate of the Confucian cultivators and the survival of the human race. He wanted to steal the 9 regions cauldrons for himself. If Master Xiaolei didn't discover it in time, I'm afraid I would have fallen into his trap. Master Xiaolei, your contribution is great. These 9 regions cauldrons are absolutely worthy of Princess Xin. However, Immortal Emperor Gaochen said with difficulty, this 9 regions great formation is easy to break, but to set it up again is extremely difficult. As far as I know, if it wasn't for 9 ninth-level origin energy experts with the same cultivation level and telepathy working at the same time, the 9 regions cauldrons wouldn't have been able to smoothly fall into the 9 regions of the hidden immortal continent. Your Majesty. Dongfang Qianghao hastily said from afar. This old servant suddenly remembered. Was it because the 9 regions' great formation was broken that there was a gap between our 3 continents and the outside world? Was that why that strange insect could sneak into our hidden immortal continent? That's right, it's that damn Xiaofan. Immortal Emperor Gochen nodded vigorously. Xiaohua said with confidence, Your Majesty, does the Immortal Palace have a way to set up the 9 regions' great formation? If possible, please give it to this Xiao. This Xiao is willing to give this great gift to Your Majesty and protect Your Majesty's foundation for eternity. Good. Immortal Emperor Gochen was also very happy. Since that's the case, this emperor allows it. As long as you set up the 9 regions' great formation and eliminate the problem of the strange insect, this emperor will announce to the world that Xian will marry into the Xiao sect. Thank you, Your Majesty. Xiaohua shouted loudly as he looked at Xian who was trembling with excitement. Xian. Immortal Emperor Gochen waved his hand and a rainbow-colored jade crystal fell in front of her. He ordered, This emperor orders you to teach the 9 regions' great formation to Master Xiao Lei and assist him in setting up the formation to contain the hidden immortals. This son accepts the order. Thank you, Your Majesty. Xian reached out her small hand. Her snow-white soft hand was now the color of a rose. She received the jade crystal and replied with a trembling voice. Wenchu Palace Master. Immortal Emperor Gochen said again, You have already helped Master Xiao Lei find Xian. Can you follow this emperor back to the Lingyun side palace today? This servant obeys the order. Wenchu saw that Xiaohua was happy and nodded. He accepted the order and flew up to the clouds with Immortal Emperor Gochen, Sun Jian, and Tai-Bai jinxing before disappearing into the clouds. After the soldiers left, Dongfang Qianghao stared at Xiaohua for a long time, then bowed and said, Daoist Master Xiao, I always thought you were a scheming person, but this time in Longevity Town, I saw you achieve the Buddha fruit of Nanwu Merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva. This is really unexpected. Even though I look down on the Buddhist fruits, I especially admire the Buddhist fruit of the Merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva because the words, Merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva, can't be proven without a truly merciful heart and benevolence. Thinking about how enlightened being brought back more than 500,000 disciples from the 4 clans, I have nothing else to say. Today, if it wasn't for enlightened being forcing us to abdicate, His Majesty might not have let us go. If we fought, the insect problem wouldn't have been eliminated. Thus, I still have to thank enlightened being. You're welcome, you're welcome. Xiaohua helped Dongfang Qianghao up with a smile and said, I've always been muddle-headed in small matters. If I offended the 4 clans because of some small details, I hope fellow immortal Dongfang and the 3 clans' patriarchs can forgive me. At this time, other than Nangong Tianji who was organizing his troops in the distance, Shimen Jianzhong and Baiming Qiu Qing also flew over and cupped their fists. Actually, after we return to our sects, we have a very high opinion of enlightened being. If it wasn't for His Majesty's plan, we wouldn't have fought. Forget it, forget it. At this time, Xiaohua was too lazy to care about the truth of these people's words. He waved his hand and said, The insect is already at our door. Fellow Taoists, please hurry and discuss how to kill it. I have seen this insect before, and it is extremely powerful. Moreover, according to my calculations, the insect that appeared before was only the tip of the iceberg. There are billions of them inside the spatial cracks, so you can't be careless. After I return to the Fortune Gate, I will write down the method to kill this insect and send it to the 3 continents through the star-plucking tower. Good. The 3 clans' patriarchs clapped their hands and said, Enlightened being Xiao is indeed worthy of being called Guanyin Bodhisattva. Then, the 4 clans also left. Xiaohua watched the group of Confucian disciples leave on clouds, leaving behind countless legends on the hidden immortal continent. Even his golden Buddha statue that had just been completed had now lost its rightful glory. Xiaohua's heart was filled with emotions. After the sutra seeking extreme bliss ended, the Buddhist sect was supposed to be the main character, and Chunzeng was supposed to be the main character. However, the fortune gate of the Taoist sect appeared and he led a group to steal the Buddhist sect's glory. When the golden Buddha statue of Guanyin Bodhisattva transformed, the Buddhist sect's face was completely trampled on. Then, Chunzeng created more problems and still wanted to seek sutras from the west. Then, the traitorous six-eared macaque appeared, once again exposing the Buddhist sect's secret. And just as immortal Emperor Gaochen sat on the mountain and watched the tigers fight, everyone fell into the ambush of the four clans. The four clans' swords were aimed at the immortal palace's throne. Seeing that the four supreme experts were helpless, the immortal emperor's subordinate, Princess Xin, appeared out of nowhere. With a mystic origin water control flag, she broke the innate four-cardinal formation that no one could break, allowing the immortal palace to completely turn the tables and surround the four clans. Seeing that the war was about to break out, and nearly 1 million lives were about to be exterminated, the alien insect appeared, and the three continents' apocalyptic omen was born, stopping the human race's tragedy. The strange changes in the world were all revealed in the Longevity Town. At this time, when Xiaohua thought about it, he was also filled with emotions. Chapter 46-54. Dongfang Qionghao's words of thanks, Xiaohua was truly worthy of it. The battle between the Buddhas and the immortals in the town of Longevity had become secondary. The most important thing was the battle between the militarists and the four great clans. The Great Sage Temple and the Thunder Temple could only watch from the sidelines. If it wasn't for Xiaohua using the Fortune Gate's strength and his own cultivation to threaten immortal Emperor Gochen, with immortal Emperor Gochen's temperament, he might not have let go of this golden opportunity to exterminate the four great clans. Fortunately, with Xiaohua's kindness and the rise of the Fortune Gate, there was a third party that immortal Emperor Gochen and the four great clans were wary of. Only then could they join forces to deal with the strange insect. Seeing that the monks of the Tidal River Temple had come out and were cleaning up the mess with lingering fear, Xiaohua smiled and looked at the Guanyin Bodhisattva who was looking at the town of Longevity and the entire Yu province with benevolent eyes. Xiaohua opened his mouth and said, "Hundreds of years were like a dream. The parting at that time was like returning now. Whoever caused it, there will be consequences. Right and wrong, only the heavenly Tao knows. Namo Maitreya Buddha." He, Xiaohua, what are you talking about? Princess Xin smiled and said, "I have never seen you so majestic. Even His Majesty was overshadowed by your brilliance. All of the brilliance is but a cloud before you, all of the prestige is no match for the gentleness in your eyes." Xiaohua said affectionately, "When the 9-province formation is completed, this husband will draw your eyebrows for you." Xin was originally shy when he heard this, but when Xiaohua said, "husband," he hastily frowned and said in a low voice, "Xiao Lang, the titles of husband and wife, don't speak carelessly. Before performing the ceremony of husband and wife, it's improper." Xiaohua touched his nose awkwardly. He understood that Xin was a princess of the immortal palace and had been learning Confucian etiquette since young. Fairy Hongxia and Shui were Taoist cultivators and didn't care about these things. He would have to be more careful in the future. Thinking about Fairy Hongxia and Shui, Xiaohua's heart moved. He wanted to tell Xin, but he swallowed his words. Although Confucian cultivators emphasized 3 wives and 4 concubines and Xin might not care about Fairy Hongxia, he had just proposed marriage in front of immortal Emperor Gochen. Any woman would be unhappy if he told Xin. He had left Dawn Rain mainland for several hundred years. Who knew if Fairy Hongxia had any other thoughts? Thus, Xiaohua decided to leave this matter for the future. Xian, I will be careful in the future. Xiaohua said. Xiaohua sighed. Xian blinked her eyes, smiling. She's, Hua's. The two of them had only whispered a few words when Celestial Being and Thunderbolt Immortal flew over from afar. Seeing this, Xiaohua asked worriedly, "How's the situation around Longevity Town?" "I'll let you know." Thunderbolt Immortal smiled. The four great clans are quite honest. Although they cut off the Liao River's flow, they also set up a forbidden array. The river water didn't flood the land of ordinary people and didn't affect their livelihood because of the array. That's good. Xiaohua nodded slightly. After thinking for a while, he took out the Kunlun mirror. Under the light, Daoist Witch and his disciples flew out. Xiaohua ordered, "Return to the Fortune Dao Palace first and discuss the matter of resisting the alien insects. This matter is of great importance. It's comparable to the heavenly demon's destruction of the world." Hiss. The disciples were shocked and didn't dare to delay. After saluting, they flew back to the soaring Dragon Mountain range. After everyone left, Xiaohua smiled and said, Xian, why don't you come with me to a place?" "Oh? Where?" Xian didn't understand. Is there anything more important in this world than the alien insects? Of course. Xiaohua moved his body, and with a wave of his hand, he held Xian's small hand in his. Seeing that there was no one around, Xian obediently let Xiaohua hold his hand, just like that day in the flower pavilion. Then, he heard Xiaohua say, "Don't you want to know what happened in these 300 years? Don't you want to know how I cultivated to the Mahayana realm in 300 years? Of course I do." Xian narrowed her eyes and looked at the setting sun. The red clouds fell on Xian's face, making her look especially shy. Xian moaned, "My memories are still stuck in the past. Everything now is like a dream. It's like 10,000 dreams of yearning." Xiaohua held Xian's hand and flew up into the sky. Their figures landed on the ground and slowly elongated, just like the countless couples in the world. At this moment, they were comparable to the eternity of the world. Jiangshui Town was a small town near the coast of the East Sea in Liangqi County of Jing Province. The town wasn't big and the people were simple. In the southwest of the town, there was a family with the surname Chen. This family was originally a scholarly family in Jiangshui Town and had a history of several hundred years. Unfortunately, this family didn't have many descendants. Every generation, there was only one son. 60 years ago, they were still a small family. They didn't have any descendants and even became poorer. But later, the two elders of the Chen family brought back a daughter-in-law from the Qingyu Hall in the town's east. Their family's situation gradually improved. Today, the Chen family was divided into 5 branches. Each branch had 4 to 10 children, gradually showing the aura of a small family. Although 5 of the Chen family's sons had been separated, during the holidays, all of the family members had to return to the old house to pay their respects to the elders in the family. The scholar Chen Ming's parents had naturally passed away. The only person who accompanied him was his old wife. Chen Ming was familiar with poetry and books, but his old wife didn't know how to read and didn't have a name. Ordinary neighbors and juniors all respectfully called her Chen family's granny. The Chen family's granny was very benevolent and loved her family. She was even more filial to Chen Ming's parents. Chen Ming's parents were even closer to the Chen family's granny than to Chen Ming. Of course, Chen Ming's parents were good to the Chen family's granny not only because of their feelings for each other, but also because the Chen family's granny was good at managing the family. Because ever since the Chen family's granny married into the family, not only did the Chen family's financial situation improve, but in 10 years, the Chen family had added 6 sons. What made Chen Ming's parents unable to close their mouths was that these 6 sons were each more intelligent and strong than the next. Some were smart in reading, some were good at business. In short, every one of them was promising, and when they grew up, they would become outstanding. In the end, before Chen Ming's parents passed away, they still held the Chen family's granny's hand and sighed with emotion. Marrying this daughter-in-law was the Chen family's ancestral grave emitting green smoke. In the eyes of others, the Chen family's granny was good in everything, but there was one thing that no one understood. Even Chen Ming himself didn't understand it. That is, the Chen family's granny was kind to others, but never gave alms to the monks who came to beg for alms. Not only did she not give alms, but she also didn't allow her family to give alms. However, the Chen family's granny herself often went to a small temple about 100 li away from Jiangshui town to give alms. Jiangshui town originally didn't have a temple, but after Chuanzang's Nirvana Sutra, there were a few Buddhas from the Nirvana world who couldn't hold back their desire to become Buddhists. They followed Chuanzang's footsteps and began to develop their power in the hidden immortal continent. Jiangshui town didn't have a temple, and the temple that the Chen family's granny went to was only one of the few small temples in Liangqi County. On this day, the sun was shining brightly. The sun hung in the west and gradually set. In the Chen family's courtyard, under the shadow of a large Chinese parasol tree, the Chen family's granny was lying on a recliner with her eyes closed. Under those eyelids, a pair of eyes were randomly rolling left and right. 2 withered hands were tightly gripping the sides of the recliner, as if she was having a nightmare. Father. Suddenly, the Chen family's granny opened her eyes. 2 drops of turbid tears slowly flowed down her cheeks. Her eyes were filled with hatred and regret. After the Chen family's granny woke up, she was in a daze for a moment. Then, she came to her senses. Just as she was about to wipe away her tears, a gust of wind suddenly blew in the courtyard. Woo! A cool breeze blew past, and a piece of leaf slowly drifted down from the Chinese parasol tree. Sigh, I'm old, this lifetime. The Chen family's granny raised her hand and used her rough hand to wipe away the tears at the corner of her eyes. That piece of leaf just happened to fall on her knee. Just as the Chen family's granny was about to brush away the leaf from the Chinese parasol tree, 2 figures suddenly appeared and blocked the sunlight that shone on her. The Chen family's granny was not surprised because her juniors often came to greet her. Since she was old and sleepy, her juniors would often stand respectfully by her side. When she slowly raised her head and narrowed her eyes to look at the people who came, she could not help but be stunned. This was because the people standing in front of her were a man and a woman. The man was tall and thin with slanted eyebrows. Although he did not look particularly handsome, the aura between his eyebrows was incomparably gentle. Not to mention the slight smile at the corner of the man's mouth, it actually made the Chen family's granny, who was in her 60s, feel her heart skip a beat. If the man could make the Chen family's granny's heart grow grass, then the woman beside the man could really make the Chen family's granny suffocate. This woman was dressed in palace attire and had a picturesque appearance. Although there was no special smile on her face, her moon-like eyes were filled with grace and gentleness. A feeling that made people want to worship her involuntarily rose in the heart of the Chen family's granny. Before the Chen family's granny could retract her gaze from the 2 people, the man asked in a gentle voice, "Are you Mao Chao?" Mao Chao? It was a familiar name, a name that she had not heard for a long time, a name that was deeply engraved in her memory. When she suddenly heard it, the Chen family's granny was stunned. Her body, which was about to straighten up, stiffened, and her heart turned cold. It was just like the moment she saw her mother fall to the ground and die. "Don't worry." The woman smiled faintly like a blooming spring flower. The Chen family's granny felt a little dizzy again. Give it a recommendation vote, bookmark it, or tip it. Thank you for all your support. Chapter 46-55. After half a cup of tea's time, the Chen family's granny finally calmed down. She very naturally turned her head and looked towards the central room. There was also a reclining chair at the entrance of the central room. That was where Chen Ming was reading. However, when the Chen family's granny's gaze fell on Chen Ming, she saw that he was holding an ancient book in his hand. He was squinting his eyes as he strenuously read it. Beside him, there was also a young page boy serving him. However, at this moment, the two of them were like clay sculptures. They couldn't even move. One was flipping through the book while the other was holding a bamboo fan to light the stove. Not to mention them, even the flame in the small stove was still under the kettle. Great! Great master! The Chen family's granny seemed to understand something. She hurriedly struggled to get up from the reclining chair. That reclining chair could be swayed. Normally, the Chen family's granny would have to rely on the support of the younger generation to get up. At this moment, how could she get up in a panic? The man slightly smiled. He stepped forward and carefully helped the Chen family's granny up. When the Chen family's granny saw that the man was personally helping her, she was even more terrified. She hurriedly wanted to salute. The man waved his hand and said with a smile, "Don't be so polite. Although you are young, you are already senile. If you salute this old man will feel apologetic in his heart." The Chen family's granny felt a huge force stopping her. She simply stopped saluting and carefully asked, "Great master is looking for me. Is there a reason?" The man nodded. "This old man's name is Xiaofan. You can call me Daoist Xiao. This old man came here today to verify something with you." At this point, Xiaofan paused for a moment. The smile on his face disappeared. He asked, "Presumably, you already know what it is?" Daoist Xiao. The Chen family's granny was already old. She didn't hear Xiaohua's last sentence clearly. Instead, she cried out in surprise, You are that Daoist Xiao?" Xiaohua was stunned. He seemed to have thought of something. He glanced at Xian and asked, "This old man doesn't know the Daoist Xiao you are talking about. Who is it?" "Daoist Xiao, I am talking about that immortal rice." The Chen family's granny's face was filled with excitement. She said, "Daoist Xiao's rice. Oh, I should say. It's the immortal rice bestowed by Daoist Master Xiao." Chen family's granny's words were a bit unclear, and even a bit incoherent. However, Xiaohua heard it clearly. He rubbed his nose in embarrassment, nodded and said, "You're right. I am that Daoist Xiao. Daoist Master Xiao, Daoist Master Xiao, you are truly a living bodhisattva." Granny Chen takes 2 steps forward, grabs Xiaohua's Daoist robe and says, 30 years ago, our Jiangshui town met with a disaster. All of our rice withered. If not for Daoist Zhao's immortal seed, my children would have starved to death. You are the real Guanyin Bodhisattva who saves people from suffering. You are more merciful than Amitabha." After hearing the Chen family's granny say a few words, Xiaohua's mood calmed down. He smiled and said, "Since you know this old man, then this matter will be easy to handle. Take a look and see if you know him." As he spoke, Xiaohua waved his hand, and the imprisoned 6-eared macaque was pulled out. However, the 6-eared macaque had transformed into Zhenkong's appearance. When Granny Chen saw the 6-eared macaque, she was shocked. Her eyes flashed with ruthlessness. However, in a moment, she hurriedly retreated, and in a hurry, her body fell backward. Xiaohua did not need to raise his hand, as Xian had already supported Granny Chen from the side. Granny Chen had just stabilized herself when she immediately turned her head and looked towards the direction of the central room. The hatred in her eyes disappeared, and instead, it was replaced by fear. "Chow Chow, don't be afraid," Xiaohua said warmly, this beast has already been imprisoned by this old man. It can no longer harm others. Today, this old man came to tell you the truth and avenge your parents. Avenge. Avenge my parents? When Granny Chen heard this, her originally stooped figure began to tremble. Her slightly fearful eyes lit up again, and her lips trembled as she said, But my parents' revenge has already been avenged. Xiaofan frowned slightly. After thinking for a moment, he pointed at the six-eared macaque and said, Do you think this is the real Zhen Kong or the fake Zhen Kong? This. Granny Chen hesitated for a moment, then looked at Xiaofan and Xian. She gritted her teeth and said, This is the fake Zhen Kong. But when Xuanzang asked you, why did you say it was the real Zhen Kong? Xiaofan naturally knew that Granny Chen would say this, but he still asked the same question. No, Master Xuanzang did not ask me. Granny Chen seemed to remember the situation clearly. She replied, It was that big pig called Jinjia who asked me. Xiaofan naturally did not care about this detail. He waved his hand and said, No matter who asked, this old man wants to ask you. You knew that this was not the real Zhen Kong, so why did you say he was the real Zhen Kong? Ha ha ha. At this point, Granny Chen seemed to have understood. She laughed loudly and said, Zhenren Xiao, you are an immortal. You don't know what this little girl was thinking. At that time, this little girl was just a child. I did not know who was good and who was bad. How could this little girl dare to speak blindly? Besides, the real Zhen Kong killed my parents, and I'm powerless to avenge them. This fake Zhen Kong killed the real Zhen Kong, and I can't even thank him enough. Why should I expose him? AI, why is hatred so deep in your bones? Xiaofan sighed. It's been almost 50 years, but you still haven't let it go. How can I let it go? I originally had a father and mother who loved me. Although my home was shabby, with my father and mother, I had everything. It was also that afternoon that I met that Zhen Kong. In the morning, my mother kindly went to deliver food to them, but instead, she was killed by them. My father merely asked them a few questions before he was killed by them. My entire life has changed because of this matter. How can I let it go? Granny Chen seemed to have buried this matter in her stomach her whole life. Today, she happily said it out loud. Tears fell from her eyes. Do you know? Daoist Xiao, I was still dreaming just now. In the dream, I was eating the small fish my mother fried, and that damn Zhen Kong rushed in and beat my mother to death with a stick. Although I can't remember mother's appearance, I still remember mother's bloodied clothes very clearly. Even now, I can still dream of this nightmare. How can you let it go? Namo Maitreya Buddha. Xiaofan chanted the name of Buddha and said, Actually, what you saw was only the surface. Then, Xiaofan told her the truth about Mao Chao's parents being controlled by the control bug. Finally, he said, Actually, it was this six-ear macaque who did this. He controlled your parents to harm Xuanzang. That Zhen Kong. He had no choice but to act in order to protect Xuanzang. I know. Out of Xiaohua's expectation, Granny Chen replied without hesitation. When I was young, I didn't know. When I grew up, I understood. My parents must have been used by the fake Zhen Kong. That's why they were killed by the real Zhen Kong. It's good that you know. Xiaofan nodded. The real Zhen Kong was sent by this old man to protect Xuanzang. But he was killed by this six-ear macaque. Now that the sutra seeking extreme bliss is over, this bastard scheme has been exposed. This old man wants to kill him to avenge Zhen Kong. But he said that this old man doesn't have the right to kill him. In this world, the only one who has the right to decide whether he lives or dies is you. So, this old man brought him here. Should I kill Zhen Kong and let him go? Granny Chen was stunned. She stared at the six-ear macaque for a moment. The six-ear macaque's eyes didn't seem to be pleading. There wasn't even a trace of emotion. Granny Chen raised her head and looked at Xiaohua. Of course I should let him go. Why should I kill him? He helped me take revenge for my parents. Xiaohua was surprised. When he knew that the six-ear macaque was looking for Mao Chao, he already knew what the six-ear macaque meant. The six-ear macaque thought that Mao Chao didn't know that it was the six-ear macaque who used the control bug to control her parents. So, Mao Chao thought that the six-ear macaque was the one who helped her avenge her parents. But what Xiaohua didn't understand was that Mao Chao already knew that the six-ear macaque was the one who killed her parents. Why would he let the six-ear macaque go? Sigh, Jinren Shao. Granny Chen sighed. Don't you think it's strange? Why is it that I know that this six-ear macaque used my parents to kill them, but I still feel grateful to him and don't want him to die? Indeed. Xiaohua nodded and rubbed his nose. Granny Chen raised her head and looked in the direction of the East Sea. She said in a low voice, "This place is not far from where I lived when I was young. But I never went back. Although the Qingyu Hall that Master Chuanzang sent me to was very good, and I had good food and drink, and I even lived a good life in the Chen family. But all of this, it can't be compared to that broken house by the sea. Because I don't have parents in this world, even if I go back, I won't be able to see them. So I'm afraid that if I go back." Seeing that Granny Chen was reminiscing, Xiaohua smiled bitterly. But he didn't interrupt her. After all, a tragic childhood had already affected this old woman's whole life. Fortunately, after a while, Granny Chen said again, "Jinren Shao, although I'm old, I'm not stupid. Although the six-ear macaque used my parents, I don't hate him. Because there are too many people in this world who are scheming against each other, deceiving each other and using each other. Compared to these people, the six-ear macaque's methods are nothing. Daoist Master Shao, in my entire life, I have only been to Liangqi County. Most of my time has been spent in Jiangshui town. My third son is a businessman. I have only followed him for 3 years in this small Jiangshui town. In those 3 short years, I have seen all kinds of strange ways of using people. If this small town is like this, then what about the whole Liangqi County? What about the whole Jing province? What about the whole hidden immortal continent? I often tell my son that other people can be used because they have value to be used. If a person has no value to be used, then there's no meaning to their existence. But after you use them, you must repay them. Even if you're scheming against them, don't be unscrupulous, and don't be ruthless. Because it's normal to use people, but unscrupulous means can take people's lives." Chapter 46-56. Hiss. Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. He seemed to understand what Cao Cao wanted to say. Sure enough, Granny Chen cried again. "Six-ear monkey used my parents. I really don't hate him because he wanted to achieve his goal. He wanted to join the Sutra of Bliss, so he had to use some tricks. The one I hate the most is Zhen Kong. My parents were controlled by the six-eared monkey. Even if they were controlled, they couldn't possibly be Zhen Kong's match. Zhen Kong had the means to subdue my parents, but he just killed them with a single strike of his staff. Why? Why? Does killing them with one hit make him look strong? Would he be able to obtain more merit through this? Why can't he tie them up? Why can't he let them live? Well. Xiaohua was speechless. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Once the control bug is placed in a person's body, that person is no longer the same person. Even if they aren't killed, they will go crazy. They will no longer be the same person. I'd rather see a crazy father and mother than a senseless father and mother." Granny Chen shouted hysterically. As long as I can see them, I'll be at ease. My sky won't fall. Sigh, why is hatred so deep? Xiao Hua actually understood Cao Cao's heart. He sighed. The hatred from decades ago made an old woman so stubborn. Actually, Xiao Hua. Xin, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke up. You're also confused because of the situation. Aren't you also because of hatred? Aren't you also stubborn because of hatred? Boom. Xiao Hua felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He was stunned on the spot and muttered to himself in a low voice, "That's right." Because of hatred, Liao Chao couldn't tell who the real culprit was. She wholeheartedly wanted to avenge her parents, so she identified the six-eared macaque as Zhen Kong. Isn't that the same for me? I wanted to take revenge for Yuan Tong Tian, so I didn't ask for the reason. Why did I insist on killing Six-Ear Monkey? Actually, thinking about it now, Liao Chao's words were not without reason. If Zhenkong used a different method to imprison Liao Chao's parents, then looked for Manjushri Bodhisattva and Taibai Jinxing, there might be a way to save Liao Chao's parents. Of course, it would be very troublesome to find these two people. With Yuan Tongtian's personality, he would never lower his head to ask for help. He would only use the simplest method. But the price of Yuan Tongtian's saving effort was the loss of his parents' lives. Then what about this Xiao now? It is easy to kill the six-eared macaque, but the six-eared macaque is still a life, and it is the reincarnation of Ananda. Do I have a more troublesome way? Is this a troublesome method that I don't want to provoke? Xiao Hua glanced at the six-eared macaque lying on the ground and sighed. Sigh, as expected of Mahavairakana's first disciple, and also the first in wisdom. You didn't even beg for mercy, nor did you let the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord or the Mahavairakana World Lord plead for mercy. You only brought me to meet an old man of the secular world, which put me in a dilemma. Xiao Hua frowned, as if he couldn't make a decision. Xin didn't say anything and only accompanied him. After a while, Xiao Hua took out the Kunlun mirror. A pillar of light flashed, and Chun Zong appeared in midair. Great! Great master! Chen family's granny was crying emotionally. However, when she saw Chun Zong, she couldn't help but stop. She looked at Chun Zhang's appearance with teary eyes, which didn't change much. Lady Tan Yu. Chun Zong looked at Chen family's granny in confusion, not knowing what had happened. This is Liao Chao. Xin reminded, you have left the East Sea for almost 50 years. She is also old. Liao Chao. Chun Zong immediately understood and looked at Chen family's granny with a sigh. Chen family's granny couldn't hold it in anymore. She threw herself at Chun Zhang's knees as if she was a child who saw her parents. She cried, "Great master! Liao Chao!" Chun Zong didn't hesitate. He stroked Chen family's granny's snow-white hair and asked gently, "How have you been all these years?" "Good, good, good." Chen family's granny was sobbing, but she still nodded vigorously, as if she was afraid that Chun Zong would be worried. Humph. Seeing Chun Zhang's tears and Chen family's granny crying, Xiao Hua glared at Six-Eared Macaque and lifted his hand to remove the shackles on Six-Eared Macaque. He said coldly, "Liao Chao, no matter what, this is her business. I didn't say that I would let you go." "Yes, Bodhisattva." Six-Eared Macaque said respectfully, "I understand. Actually, I invited Bodhisattva here to let you know. Bodhisattva, it's not wrong to let Fire Ape protect Master Chun Zong, but to let him participate in the sutra seeking extreme bliss is really inappropriate. I don't know if Bodhisattva is aware that the Fire Ape has protected Master for 200 years. It has killed 2,078 Dao sect cultivators and as many as 4,601 demons. Bodhisattva, that's almost 10,000 lives. If Master Chunzong had not advised Fire Ape again and again to be merciful, he would not have cared about the lives of the human race. His magic wand has never spared anyone's life. Bodhisattva, tell me. What's the use of bringing the bloody Mahayana Sanzang to the Zhangxian continent? Xiaofan narrowed his eyes. He really did not know what six-eared macaque was talking about. But when he thought about Yuan Tongtian's arrogant personality, he knew that six-eared macaque would not dare to lie to him. After all, Yuan Tongtian was a demon. In the eyes of the demons, the lives of the human race were not precious. Of course, those Taoist cultivators and demons who were tricked by Yuan Tongtian also had ulterior motives. Some of them even deserved it. Xiaohua had personally killed one of them in the snowy mountains. But when Xiaohua heard that so many humans and demons were killed by Yuan Tongtian, he could not help but feel a little shocked. Also, Bodhisattva, do you know why Fire Ape was imprisoned in Flaming Forest Swamp? Do you know why he went to Mount Million Meng to look for me? Six-eared macaque asked. When six-eared macaque mentioned Flaming Forest Swamp, Xiaohua's expression changed again. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Tell me. I don't want to talk about the specific reason. After all, Fire Ape is dead. If I talk about it after he's dead, it'll be like I'm trying to absolve myself. Six-eared macaque answered. I can only say that Fire Ape killed tens of thousands of Shui family disciples for some reason. That's why he was imprisoned under the lava. Shui family fell because of this. Shui family? Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He thought of Shui again. As for why Fire Ape came to Mount Million Meng to look for me, the reason is even simpler. Six-eared macaque sneered. He wanted to ask me for a secret technique to refine the Million Blood Orb. The Million Blood Orb. I don't need to tell you. I'm sure Bodhisattva already knows that it's refined with the blood essence of 10,000, 100,000, or even 1,000,000 living beings. Say no more. Xiaohua said coldly. That's all in the past. Ever since Yuan Tongtian came to the three continents, he has turned over a new leaf. Turned over a new leaf? Six-eared macaque sneered again. Bodhisattva, I don't know where Fire Ape learned those skills from. If I'm not mistaken, it must be Bodhisattva who taught him. It's because he learned those skills that he stopped using unscrupulous means to cultivate. It's also because Bodhisattva asked him to protect Master Chunzong. That's why he stopped killing people. If he really turned over a new leaf, he wouldn't have killed people on the path to seeking scripture. Then, Six-ears macaque looked at Chun Tong and said, as for your disciple, besides the time I committed a crime in Million Meng Mountains and the time I killed the Fire Ape, I've never killed anyone in the past 1,000 years. Bodhisattva, I'm the one who's turning over a new leaf, right? You don't have to talk about others. You're also unscrupulous. Xiaohua said coldly. Why did you kill Master Huaqin in Mount Million Meng? Was it because of the rejuvenation pill? Didn't you also kill people for your own cultivation? The one you killed was a highly respected master craftsman in Mount Million Meng. Yes, I don't deny it. Six-eared macaque nodded. However, the rejuvenation pill wasn't my main goal. I'm good at listening, and I can see the truth. So, I know that some things can be done, and some things can't be done. As for the master craftsman that Bodhisattva mentioned, do you know how many soul beasts he had killed in order to craft artifacts? You're saying? Xiaohua narrowed his eyes. You know that after killing Master Huaqin, you'll be able to come to the Western Paradise? Yes. Six-eared macaque answered without hesitation. Then, do you know if I'll kill you this time? Xiaohua asked. Looking at the murderous intent on Xiaohua's face, Six-eared macaque answered honestly, I don't know anything about Bodhisattva, just like the Mahavairakana revered Buddha, Dipankara archaic Buddha, and Maitreya Buddha. Six-eared macaque hesitated for a moment. Then, he narrowed his eyes and said, however, I do know that Bodhisattva has the power to kill me, but that's just power. Bodhisattva isn't heaven and earth. Bodhisattva doesn't have the right to punish me. Bodhisattva killed me based on his own preferences. Xiaohua had already decided to kill him. That day in Longevity Town, even when facing the Dipankara archaic Buddha, Xiaohua did not hesitate to capture six-eared macaque, the victorious devil-slaying Buddha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha did not say anything either. On the way to Jiangshui Town, Xiaohua had expected Liao Chao to react this way. However, he did not expect Liao Chao to not hate six-eared macaque even though he knew that six-eared macaque was the culprit. On top of that, six-eared macaque had told Xiaohua about Yuan Tongtian's misdeeds in the past and his killing today. Xiaohua could not refute it. Chapter 46-57. In particular, there were two sentences that Xiaohua was deeply moved by. The first one was, "Why is hatred so deep?" This was what Xiaohua said to Mao Chao, and it was also what Xian said to Xiaohua. Mao Chao could not let go of his hatred for Yuan Tongtian, and he himself had not let go of his hatred for six-eared macaque. In other words, he had no right to criticize Mao Chao. The second one was, Bodhisattva has the power to kill his disciple, but this is power. Bodhisattva is not heaven and earth, and Bodhisattva has no right to condemn his disciple. Bodhisattva kills his disciple because of his own preferences. This was what six-eared macaque said to Xiaohua. If this was before, Xiaohua would have harumphed and said, I may not be heaven and earth, but I am the master of justice. I am heaven and earth, and I have the right to condemn you. Unfortunately, six-eared macaque and Yuan Tongtian's misdeeds, Xiaohua could not rely on his love for Yuan Tongtian, and Yuan Tongtian's loyalty to him to say that he had the right to condemn him. But six-eared macaque did kill Yuan Tongtian, and Yuan Tongtian was under Xiaohua's orders to protect Chunzang. Xiaohua did have the right to kill six-eared macaque to avenge Yuan Tongtian. Humph. Xiaohua sneered and raised his hand. Six-eared macaque, no matter how glib your tongue is, I will not let you go. It's fine. Six-eared macaque closed his eyes and answered calmly, as if he was facing death. Bodhisattva, do as you wish. Xian wanted to say something, but she knew that since Xiaohua had already made his decision, she shouldn't stop him, even if she felt that what Xiaohua did wasn't particularly appropriate. At this moment, Granny Chen had stopped crying. She asked in a low voice, Master, the sutra praying in nirvana has ended. Your merit has been completed. I'm sure Master is going to spread Buddhism in the Longevity Town and enlighten people. I dare not ask for anything, but there is a small temple about 100 miles away from Jiangshui Town. Can you go there and preach? Chunzang put his palms together. Amitba, of course. But I can only preach for 3 days. After 3 days, I will still be going to the west. Oh. Master. Granny Chen was surprised. Didn't you already take the scriptures? Where are you going? Of course we're heading there. Chunzang smiled but did not answer. Then. Granny Chen asked again, who will protect the great master? This. Chun Jie opened his mouth and said with a wry smile, we still need the Buddha to send a fated person. Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. At the same time, Xian whispered, Xiaohua, it's easy to kill six-eared macaque, but six-eared macaque is still a life, and it's the reincarnation of Ananda. Why can't Xiaohua think of a more troublesome way to make him atone for his sins? For example, escorting Chunzang to the west to seek scriptures? Can it be considered as continuing Zhenkong's legacy and continuing to protect Chunzang? If that's the case, then it's naturally good, but... Xiaohua nodded, but then he gritted his teeth and said, this is really letting this fellow off too easily. Actually, it might not be cheap. Xian smiled and said, the path of seeking sutras is very dangerous, and the future is unknown. In my opinion, it is much more troublesome than death. Zhenkong. Xiaohua thought for a while, then shouted, since that's the case, this old man will let you live in this life. However, from now on, not only must you protect Chuanzang well, you cannot return to the Pure Land if you don't go to the west to seek sutras. Also, the grudge between you and Yuan Tong Tian in this life has already ended. If there is a next life, there must be a cause and effect. Are you willing? Amitba, this disciple is willing. Six-eared macaque heard Xiaohua call him Zhenkong, and he understood what Xiaohua meant. When Xiaohua finished speaking, he didn't feel any joy or sorrow. He put his palms together and said, this disciple is willing to use my strength to protect Master Chuanzang and seek sutras in the West. Of course, this disciple also hopes that when he sees Zhenkong again, he will no longer be the bloodthirsty Zhenkong. This is not something for you to think about. You just have to be yourself. Xiaohua replied calmly. Many thanks, great merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva. Hearing Xiaohua let six-eared macaque go, Chuanzang was delighted. It wasn't that he liked six-eared macaque or Zhenkong, but he didn't want Xiaohua to break the rule of killing, and he didn't want to see any living thing die. Forget it. Xiaohua helped Chuanzang up and said, Chuanzang, this old man will wait for you here for 3 days. When you finish your preaching, I will send you back to Longevity Town, and you can continue to seek sutras in the West. Amitba. Chuanzang laughed. Even the Bodhisattva is obsessed. As long as there are people who seek sutras, and have the heart to seek sutras, there is no Longevity Town. He, indeed, indeed. Xiaohua patted his forehead and laughed. This old man is dizzy from Zhenkong. This disciple doesn't dare. Six-eared macaque hurriedly replied. Xiaohua raised his hand and took out the Kunlun mirror. As it shook, Zhenjia also came out. When the Chen family's granny saw the big pig appear again, she couldn't help but tear up. Granny? Who are they? At this time, a lively and cute girl ran out from the central room. Seeing that Zhenjia and Zhenkong didn't know fear, she asked in surprise. Shuang. The Chen family's granny was shocked. She hurriedly looked over and saw that the people who were imprisoned just now were all moving, as if everything they saw was just a dream. However, at this time, Chuanzang, Zhenjia, and Zhenkong were still beside the Chen family's granny. Xiaohua and Xian had already disappeared. This disciple respectfully sends off Guanyin Bodhisattva. Chuanzang and the others saw this and hurriedly put their palms together and bowed to the sky. The Chen family's granny also hurriedly kowtowed. Whoosh. 3 scattered lights fell from the sky and landed in front of Chuanzang, Zhenjia, and Zhenkong. The 3 of them looked over and saw that it was the 3 shaman puppets. Xiaohua's voice came from the sky. This item is bestowed to the 3 of you. It can save you from a life or death disaster. When this item breaks, this old man will know and will appear in time. However, it is better to be safe than sorry. There is nothing absolute in this world. You all still have to rely on yourselves. Thank you, Bodhisattva. Chuanzang was really happy. Just as he was about to thank Xiaohua, 2 emerald green pills fell in front of the Chen family's granny. Xiaohua's voice came again. Chow Chow, Yuan Tong Tian caused your family to be destroyed. This old man will compensate for him. This is a Taoist pill. Although it is ordinary, it is extraordinary to ordinary people. You and your husband will each have one. After consuming it, it can extend your life by 100 years. Thank you, great Guanyin Bodhisattva. The Chen family's granny was very happy. She took the pills and kowtowed again. In the sky, Xiaohua and Xian had already flown far away. Xian looked at Xiaohua with her beautiful eyes and smiled. Xiaohua, I didn't expect that the stingy you would have a generous time. Not only did you spare the six-eared macaque's life, you also gave Chow Chow 2 pills. Those 2 pills are really nothing. If it was possible, this old man wanted to give her 2 rejuvenation pills. Unfortunately, the rejuvenation pills are not for ordinary people to consume. Xiaohua shook his head. Of course, even the rejuvenation pills are nothing compared to the happiness Chow Chow lost. That's right, happiness is priceless. Xian seemed to have thought of something and said sadly, especially the happiness of being at the knees of father and mother. However, in just a moment, Xian realized that her words were inappropriate. She quickly forced a smile and said, but, Xiaohua, you can let go of your hatred. You are really the great Guanyin Bodhisattva. Sometimes, you have to let go even if you don't want to. Even if you don't want to let go. Xiaohua was about to explain when he suddenly stopped in midair. He looked into the distance and said coldly, since you're here, why don't you show yourself? Who? Xian was shocked. A green light flashed in her hand and she was about to take out the Xianyuan water control flag. Amitabha. A faint Buddhist chant came and a Buddhist light appeared in the sky not far away. This Buddhist light was like a lotus and a Buddha Lord stepped out from the lotus. However, this Buddha Lord was a little strange. Half of his golden body was shining like the sun while the other half was extremely dry and dark. Moreover, the light behind the Buddha Lord's head was half bright and half dark. Great! Mahavarakana Venerable of the World? Although Xiaohua had never seen Mahavarakana Venerable of the World, when he saw the Buddha Lord's aura, Xiaohua already understood. He couldn't help but cry out in surprise, You! What happened to you? Amitabha, fate is tribulation and tribulation is karma. Mahavarakana Venerable of the World's expression didn't change. He put his palms together and said, I made a mistake, so I naturally have to face tribulation. Hiss. Xiaohua took a breath and seemed to understand something. Not only did he not feel happy, but his heart sank. He took a breath and said in surprise, Venerable of the World, the real and fake chastity. Has such a big impact? Namo Great Merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva is indeed the most famous bodhisattva in our Buddhism sect. Mahavarakana Venerable of the World didn't answer Xiaohua's question. Instead, he praised, although Bodhisattva used her physical body to prove the Buddhist fruit of our Buddhism sect, in the matter of the real and fake chastity, she didn't cause karma because of selfishness. She was merciful and showed the Buddha's heart, not stained by dust on the mirror platform. She is 100 times better than me. Amitabha. Xiaohua was even more shocked. A layer of cold sweat actually appeared on his back. He put his palms together and glanced at Xian. His eyes were full of gratification. Then, he looked at Mahavarakana Venerable of the World and said, as Venerable of the World said, this matter. No need to say it, no need to mention it. Mahavarakana Venerable of the World smiled and said, there will be a time when the truth comes to light. At that time, all karma will be known. Amitabha, disciple understands. Since Xiaohua was the Namo Great Merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva, he naturally had to meet Mahavarakana Venerable of the World as a disciple. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.